Chapter 182. Tian Xiang's voice became a lot colder. Are you blaming me? Don't forget, you chose all of this, or rather, we chose it together. If you feel guilty, you can give up. We've spent so many years preparing this abundant life and death energy, and finally managed to cultivate Nianbing. This opportunity won't appear again. Cao didn't change because of Tian Xiang's cold voice, and said indifferently, everything will pass. I just want to be able to eat Nianbing's food. The human world is so wonderful. After 50,000 years, I really want to live a good life. Tian Xiang softened. Why wouldn't I want to? But as long as those three guys exist, this can only be a dream. Nianbing will be our last chess piece. If there's a miracle, perhaps we'll never have to use him. You've already told him too many things today. He's a smart person, and I don't want there to be a next time. Otherwise, if he guesses something, all our plans will go down the drain, and we won't have a future. The ordinary-looking Cao and the frosty, beautiful Tian Xiang looked at each other, and both of them saw a trace of melancholy in each other's eyes. As they looked at each other, they buried that strange feeling in the bottom of their hearts. The black shadow flickered and merged back into the body of life, and the energy fluctuations in the lake of life became even more intense. Cao's figure flashed, and he floated into the lake of life. The dark space gradually brightened, and everything in the surroundings seemed to be still. No scenery in this still space would fluctuate, even the smallest element. Everything maintained its original appearance, without the slightest change. A rough voice sounded in this still space. Order. You're injured? Destruction. I'm not seriously injured, but their progress is greater than we thought, and they're not that easy to deal with. However, there's one thing I'm sure of. They didn't use the possession technique to change their bodies. This voice was very stable, and it was the god of order, Othi King. However, his tone now was not as humble as before. A third voice sounded at this time, with a bit of femininity in it. Order, Cao, and Tian Xiang have fought with us for so many years. If they were easy to deal with, we would have won long ago. Although they're only half-finished products. But we have to admit, in terms of grade, they're higher than us. Your aura is a bit chaotic, but it's not because of your injury. The god of order said indifferently, Yes, I met a human at Cao's place, a human who seemed to have a close relationship with her. This human's spiritual powers, and from his aura, I can tell that he doesn't belong to the continent. Oh, surprise came from both the rough and feminine voices at the same time. The god of time said, Spiritual power? Could this be Kaul's secret weapon against us? The rough voice representing the god of destruction said, Then why didn't you just kill that human? With your power, you can't kill Cao, but can't you kill a human? The god of order said indifferently, I made a move. Although Cao reacted quickly, I felt that the human was not ordinary from the beginning, so I kept close to him. But that human's spiritual power could actually block my energy for a moment, so I couldn't burst out my full power in a hurry. Moreover, he had 7 weapons that could threaten us at the same time. Although I forced him to retreat once, he didn't have a second chance to attack. The god of time said, When the order attacks, there are no survivors. How confident are you this time? The god of order said, 70%. Only 70%. Although the human's spiritual power is very strong, his physical strength is very weak. His magic power is barely comparable to a demigod's. Although I didn't use my full power, I'm 70% sure that I can kill him. The god of destruction said, Then what are you worried about? It's not easy to find a human that suits Cao and Tian Xiang. Since he's dead, it proves that our judgment was correct. Tian Xiang's death aura suddenly disappeared to train a helper. You just happened to go at the right time. The god of order said, But I don't think it's that simple. This human does have Tian Xiang's pure death energy, but his spiritual power is completely out of proportion with his physical strength. This situation is very rare among humans. His Tian and acupoint has been opened to the ultimate level. Other than the 5 of us, this is the first time I've seen a human who can open his Tian and acupoint to such an extent. Moreover, he's very young. I think his spiritual power should have an innate advantage. He's been cultivating since childhood, plus a special environment, so it's possible to achieve this. The ultimate Tian and acupoint? It's true that no god on the continent of gods can achieve this. Let me think, well, there seems to be a kind of person on the continent of Yangon who is born with much stronger spiritual power than normal people. The god of time's voice had a hint of fertility. The god of order said, I thought of that too. You're probably talking about those white people. However, white people can't practice magic, but that human has 7 types of magic. This makes me feel very strange. With such strong spiritual power as a foundation, if Cao and Tian Xiang teach him with all their might, he might bring us a lot of trouble in the near future. We might even find a group of people like him. You know that spiritual power is our weak point. We can't allow this to happen. The god of time said coldly, it seems that we have to make those gods do something. The god of destruction said, I really want to kill them myself. The god of order said, cut off all possible opportunities. Next time, it will be their time of death. At this time, Nian Bing was in a pain he had never experienced before. As soon as he entered the lake of life, he received Cao's notice to withdraw his spiritual power. He only protected the Tian and acupoint. He opened up his body completely. Such a strong aura of life. It was actually the purest congenital aura. This kind of congenital aura that nurtured life was something that every cultivator dreamed of. However, when used on Yin Bing, this most precious thing became the most poisonous poison. His body had absorbed the purest aura of death in the lake of death. Now, he encountered another extreme. Life and death were polar opposites. Almost as soon as he withdrew his spiritual power, he was pushed to the brink of collapse. Under the influence of Pong Da's spiritual aura, all of Nian Bing's nerves became 100 times more sensitive than before. He could clearly feel that the strong aura of life had just entered his body and started to destroy without stopping. Although the levels of life and death were high, this encounter was no different from the collision of ice and fire. It was just that the feeling was more profound. He had experienced similar pain when he cultivated the same origin of ice and fire, but this time, the pain was on a completely different level. Just the high sensitivity of the aura of life almost made Ling Nianbing's confidence collapse. The pain in his body kept tearing at Nianbing's nerves. He could clearly see the situation in his body. At first, his magical power was not affected. The first problem was the surface of his body that was as tough as a dragon, his skin. His skin was stimulated by the faint green light. Gradually, problems started to develop. Since leaving the Lake of Death, Nian Bing had always thought that his body's toughness had reached a certain level. Although his spiritual power and the 7 magic dagger played an important role in his escape from the God of Order today, his tough body was also the key to his recovery after the reverse flow of his blood. Otherwise, he would have suffered more than just a light injury. The God of Order would not have thought so highly of him. His skin did not break under the effect of the water of life, and the feeling of constant changes came one after another. Nian Bing felt like he was tasting his own ice and fire cuisine. The feeling was different every moment. It was painful to the extreme and itchy to the bottom of his heart. In addition to the numbness that he most hoped for, all kinds of pain constantly appeared on his skin and passed into his spiritual world through his nerves. Even if his spiritual power was strong, it was impossible to make his strange body lose its senses. Nian Bing gritted his teeth and endured. Although his belief that supported him was shaken, it quickly recovered. After all, although the pain he had experienced before was not as strong as now, his nerves had been trained to a certain extent. He had been thinking that he had finally gotten the chance to recover after going through so much hardship. How could he give up? In order to return to the Yangon continent, in order to see his parents, lovers, and friends again, he must not give up. Perhaps it was because his body had become unusually sensitive. Nian Bing could clearly feel the changes in every part of his body. His skin gradually softened under the constant erosion of the green light spots. It became elastic and completely soft, gently moving with the flow of the water. Suddenly, the pain in his body doubled without warning. Nian Bing trembled violently, and his whole body underwent deeper changes in the constant spasms. The green light spots that represented the energy of life paused for a moment, and then chose a reasonable position, not leaving any gaps for Nianbing. They penetrated through the 36 million pores on his body at the same time. His softened skin could not stop such an invasion at all. The unprecedented pain almost tore his soul apart. At the critical moment, Nianbing desperately gathered his spiritual power together, firmly guarding the Tian Yin acupoint and the little bit of clarity in his mind, not letting himself collapse because of the severe pain. He was enduring, watching the green energy enter his body and begin a fierce battle with the death energy. The pure death energy had only fused with Nianbing's body and was not used by him. At this time, suddenly encountering such a strong and completely opposite energy attack, it naturally fought back. The gray energy spots kept pouring out from his meridians and blood, tangling with the green light spots, attacking each other without giving way. Here, every time Nianbing's body spasmed, it would bring out a gray stream of air. That was not a simple innate qi, but the blood in his body that had already turned gray. Every time the gray blood spurted out and fused with the green life energy, Nianbing felt as if his heart was being bitten by 10,000 ants. His body was already spasming violently, uncontrollably, and he even wanted to die immediately. He had told Cal before, everyone would feel different happiness at different times, and the greatest happiness he could think of now was death. Without experiencing it, one would never understand what was more painful than death, and Nianbing was experiencing it right now. The death energy and life energy did not care whether his body could adapt or not. They were both attacking and destroying each other with all their might. And Nianbing's body was their battlefield. The battlefield gradually became a scene of devastation in the fierce battle. Nianbing watched as his supple meridians were crushed by the two types of energy. He watched as tiny holes appeared on his bones. His body was gradually collapsing, and the surface of his skin was already festering. The gray blood formed an energy circle around his body, trembling and moving continuously. Not to mention controlling his body. Even if he really decided to die, he would not be able to do it. The strength of the death energy and the life energy were on par, and for a while, neither could do anything to the other. Just when Nianbing thought his body was about to be destroyed, and he was about to leave this world for real, he suddenly felt a familiar coolness in his mouth. Because he knew that although he could not speak and could not see, he could feel that the thing in his mouth was the Tian Xiang fruit that he had eaten once before. This immediately made him feel as if he had entered heaven. A gentle energy penetrated between every element of life and the element of death, forming a fine barrier that separated them. The pain almost disappeared in an instant. A long groan came out from Nianbing's mouth. In the incomparable pain, he had already forgotten that he was still in the lake. When he opened his mouth, he immediately swallowed a big mouthful of the water of life. As if igniting a fuse, the gentle energy from before actually flowed into the area between the life energy and the death energy. The battle between them appeared again, but this time it brought Nianbing twice as much pain as before. A gentle palm was placed on Nianbing's back, and a mellow breath of life entered his body from his back. All the life energy seemed to have found their leader, and under the influence of this breath of life, they launched a fierce attack on the death energy. In the face of the opponent's tide-like attack, the death energy was finally restrained. The two completely opposite energies, gray and green, gradually separated. The gray energy was inside, and the green energy was on the outside, clearly confronting each other. Every step the green energy took forward was much more difficult than the previous one. The death energy was incomparably strong. They were defending their territory, but the life energy was constantly attacking them. Both of the life energy were one of the purest energies in the world, and at the same time, they were also the highest level of energy. They could not destroy each other, and could only constantly squeeze each other, hoping to expel the other. Due to the addition of the life energy, the death energy in Nianbing's body gradually fell into a disadvantage. Under the constant pressure and tearing, it retreated little by little, giving up a small part of its territory. The place where Nian Bing's body lost the death energy was immediately occupied by the life energy. At this time, the life energy was no longer the source of Nian Bing's pain. The purest green energy directly merged with Nian Bing's body. His skin almost did not stop recovering. The sparkling and lustrous skin gradually became elastic again. Moreover, this time, Nian Bing's skin had become like a crystal, and the lustrous green light under his skin was constantly flickering. The life energy had won the first battle. However, the real battle had only just begun. Nian Bing didn't even have the time to feel it. The death energy had already launched a fierce counterattack. Because the two energies were separated, Nian Bing could feel the pain in every part of his body lessening a lot. However, at the front line of the battle between the life energy and the death energy, the pain was more intense than before. The spiritual energy in the Tian Yin acupoint fluctuated violently and trembled. The seven-colored light constantly flashed, cutting off the connection between the spiritual energy and every part of his body. Even so, it still could not stop the pain from entering Nian Bing's mind. It entered the deepest part of his soul. No matter how strong Nian Bing's spiritual energy was, under this situation, it was crumbling bit by bit. The seven-colored starry sky had completely converged at this time, turning into a small vortex of colorful light gathering together. Under the effect of the external pain, just like the death energy, it was also being compressed. The Tian Yin acupoint was completely closed, and the compressed spiritual energy was constantly fluctuating. Nian Bing felt that if his seven spiritual energies collapsed, he was afraid that he would really be finished. What was Cao doing? Why did she come back to add fuel to the fire? That burst of life energy was clearly emitted by her. Only he had this kind of ability. It surged and transformed his body. Suddenly seeing Cao's naked body, Nian Bing felt that his pain seemed to have lessened a little. Perhaps it was because he was distracted. As soon as he discovered this phenomenon, he immediately focused all of his attention and openly observed Cao. Cao's body structure was the same as that of an ordinary woman. However, her body was too perfect. Although Nian Bing had only seen Lan Chen's delicate body before, he didn't observe it so carefully. Out of a man's nature, he couldn't help but secretly think that if he could hold Cao in his arms like last time with Chen Shun, what a wonderful thing that would be. His heart became hot, and he forgot to look for the source of the cracking sound, and no longer looked at his own body. He just looked at Cao in silence, thinking of the most common dirty thoughts of men. If Cao now knew that Nian Bing could see her and still had some dirty thoughts in his mind, who knew if he would immediately kill him? Nian Bing didn't know how much time had passed. When he carefully observed every part of Cao's body from head to toe, he gradually recovered. The pain was still there, but it was obviously not as unbearable as before. The core of his seven-colored spiritual ball was his soul. Nian Bing suddenly felt that. This bead was the hardest thing in the world, and nothing could destroy it. The pain lessened, and Nian Bing also relaxed a little. At this time, he looked at his own body. He was surprised to find that the changes in his body were very small. Compared to before, only the death energy was compressed in his chest and abdomen. He lost more territory. His limbs were completely occupied by the breath of life. The familiar red blood and white bones reappeared. Because the death energy was compressed, it was retreating bit by bit, and the direction of the retreat was the magic between his chest and abdomen. Nian Bing secretly said in his heart, "It can't be." It was not easy to recover the magic. If it was completely eroded by the death energy, then what would his magic be like in the future? Cao, what are you trying to do? Just as Nian Bing was thinking, the magic in his body had already begun to change. Since recovering his magic in the Lake of Death, Nian Bing's chest and abdomen had regenerated 7 magic balls. Among the 8 balls, each one of them was more solid than before. Although the magic energy was still the same as before, it was easier to control. The absorption of the magic elements in the air was also not much faster than before under the combined effect of his mental strength. Now, The 7 magic balls gradually stopped rotating under the pressure of the death energy in the surroundings and gradually gathered to the center. The ice and fire magic balls of the same origin seemed to be resisting something. The 7 magic balls emitted a layer of faint radiance, just like how the death energy resisted the life energy, resisting the death energy. Unfortunately, how could Nian Bing's magic be compared to the 2 purest forms of energy? In just a short while, the 7 magic balls broke one by one, and the magic energy turned into a liquid state. Under the influence of the death energy, it gradually merged with the gray energy. Nian Bing could not help but feel like crying. After so many years of cultivation, it was not easy for him to achieve what he had now, but his magic disappeared at this time. Even if he could be resurrected, without magic, he could only rely on his mental strength. Could it be that he was going to become a white psychic magician? That was not what he wanted to see. The attack of the life energy became more ferocious. The green light spots had already compressed the death energy from gray to gray, and it was still shrinking in the inner path. Nian Bing sighed. Forget it. Since it was already like this, what else could he do? Since he could not change this fact, he could only accept it. Anyway, Cao and the others still needed his help. There must be a way to help him recover his magic. Thinking of this, he felt a little more relaxed. He no longer looked around and withdrew his consciousness to the vicinity of his mental strength. As soon as he withdrew, Nian Bing found a problem. The Heavenly Eye acupoint had undergone a huge change. The rainbow energy ball was still in the center of the Heavenly Eye acupoint, but the Heavenly Eye acupoint was now only slightly larger than the rainbow energy ball. Furthermore, the brilliant rainbow energy ball was completely surrounded by a layer of golden light. This faint golden light was an energy that Nian Bing had never sensed before. It was an energy that was filled with a domineering aura, and his mental strength was not affected by this energy. Instead, it was constantly communicating with it. Under the influence of that domineering aura, Nian Bing clearly felt that his originally somewhat heterogeneous mental strength had entered a process of gradual purification. The color of the spiritual ball didn't change. However, as the energy was gradually purified, the effects of his spiritual power on his senses were becoming stronger. Nian Bing was shocked to discover that his spiritual power was flowing naturally into his meridians, and he was able to control the death energy that was retreating. What's going on? Didn't his Tian Yin acupoint reach the final realm? Although the influence of the magic was a little special, but the Tian Yin acupoint that had reached the final realm shouldn't have such a huge change. But what was going on with what he was seeing now? Could it be that the Tian Yin acupoint had evolved again? No, that's impossible. Logically speaking, the 7 aperture acupoint would only reach the final realm. After that, the energy would only continue to deepen. Just like what Cao said, the human body had its limits. It was impossible to continuously evolve. But the truth was right in front of him. What should he do? Thinking of this, Nian Bing couldn't help but feel a little puzzled. He didn't know what to do. Thus, he came up with a bold idea. His consciousness once again surged out from his body. This time, his senses were much clearer, as if everything around him was under his control. He accurately controlled his consciousness to come to the front of Cao. Once again, he greedily looked at her perfect body. Resisting the urge to look at the mysterious place below, he used his consciousness to gently touch Cao's mental strength and called out to her. Cao, can you feel my voice? Chapter 183. The life energy fluctuated violently, and the life energy that was originally in Nian Bing's body suddenly slowed down a bit. Immediately, the death energy counterattacked and reoccupied a small part of the territory. Cao's voice, full of disbelief, sounded in Nian Bing's mind. You can call out to me? You can still call out to me at this time? No, this is impossible. Nian Bing said a little helplessly, I also think that this is impossible, but the facts are in front of me, and I really did it. You used your life energy to rush into my body. What are you trying to do? The magic power in my body has already been dissolved. My mind seems to have changed a little, and I can control the death energy. What should I do now to help you? Cao was silent, and the life energy no longer attacked inwards, but stopped, maintaining the existing territory. After a long while, Cao's voice sounded again. Nian Bing, you really are a monster. Nian Bing stared blankly and said with some amusement, It is my honor to be praised by a true god like you. Cao sighed softly and said, I also don't know what happened to you, but if you can control the death energy now, immediately withdraw it and let my mind occupy more territory. What I want to do is to force the pure death energy in your body together and compress it so that it can only be in the Li Zhong acupoint on your chest. In this way, the death energy can be stored there, and it will become the most tightly compressed energy. Your body has just been filled with my life energy, and you have achieved a true rebirth. You don't have to worry about your magic power. It hasn't disappeared. It has only been dissolved in your body. As long as my life energy occupies your body, then I can completely restore it. With such a huge amount of life energy as backing, and with your already open Tian Yin acupoint, I think that won't take too long for the 7 major acupoints in your body to be open one by one. It will be very beneficial for your strength to increase. Good. I understand what you mean. Then I'll start to withdraw the death energy now. The last condensed one is in the Li Zhong acupoint, right? However, I'm afraid that my spiritual power won't be able to gather the compressed death energy together. It won't be easy to restrain them. Cao said, It doesn't matter. The acupuncture points have the function of restricting energy. As long as I compress them and store them in the Li Zhong acupuncture point, I have absolute confidence that they won't launch a counterattack. As for what kind of help the death energy and life energy can bring to you in the future, it will depend on your own efforts. Tianxiang and I were also taking risks. What we have created is another god of emotions. However, you don't have her genes. Therefore, you can only rely on your own ability to develop the relationship between these two types of energy. If one day, you can integrate them like how you integrate ice and fire, this is the best help you can give us. Sai, the body of the god of emotions, without the soul and power of the god of emotions, even I don't know if this is the right thing to do. But there is one thing I can be sure of. After doing this, you will become an unpolished gem with the most potential, and your cultivation speed will increase greatly in the future. I'm afraid even we would be surprised. Now, you surprised me. Don't worry, I'm here at the end, so there won't be any adverse effects. Don't worry, we will start now. Nian Bing agreed. With a slight movement of his spiritual power, the death energy was already under his control. Under the effect of his will, he could clearly feel that the death energy was like a mass of water, and it was very difficult to compress it. His spiritual power instantly rose, separating the life energy and death energy from the middle. Immediately, all the pain disappeared again. Nian Bing was overjoyed and immediately started to control the death energy to shrink it. Even Nian Bing himself didn't expect that his spiritual power would be so strong. The death energy that felt difficult to deal with, under the effect of his spiritual power, actually shrank to half its original size, and a large amount of life energy poured into his chest and abdomen. The first thing that was repaired was his heart. The surging life energy connected the brain and the heart, and finally, the feeling of being a human again appeared. What a wonderful feeling it was. Feeling this, Nian Bing immediately increased his control of the death energy and desperately squeezed it towards his chest. With the attack of a large amount of life energy on the outside, and Nian Bing's spiritual power on the inside, the pure death energy couldn't do anything and could only shrink bit by bit. Nian Bing could clearly feel that every time the death energy shrank a little, the resistance he encountered would be a little stronger. However, his spiritual power was like a solid substance and forcefully controlled the death energy. After all, this death energy was a part of his body and would always be limited by his body. If the death energy was external, then it wouldn't be something that Nian Bing could control. As the death energy continued to shrink, Cao suddenly moved from behind Nian Bing to in front of him. The hand that was originally pressing on his back was pressed on his chest, and a large amount of life energy directly poured into Nian Bing's Li Zhong acupoint. However, it didn't directly attack, but instead turned into a net of life and wrapped around the death energy that Nian Bing was restraining. If all this was done by Cao, it would take much longer than now, but with Nian Bing's help, the process of shrinking the death energy was greatly reduced. The life energy in the Lake of Life nourished Nian Bing's body, and Cao fully activated his life energy and entered Nian Bing's Li Zhong acupoint. Not only did he trap the death energy, but at the same time, he pulled it towards the Li Zhong acupoint. During the process of pulling, and with Nian Bing's control, it became easier to shrink the death energy. Cao's current actions were equivalent to teaming up with Nian Bing to deal with Tianxiang. In terms of overall energy, he was obviously stronger than Tianxiang. However, when the death energy was compressed to a certain extent, the density of the death energy increased greatly, and it became very difficult to continue shrinking. The death energy that had been compressed into a black color had reached a state of saturation. The energy that Cao transferred into Nian Bing's body through his palm, even with Nian Bing's full effort, was unable to make the death energy ball shrink any further. However, if he wanted to let it enter the Li Zhong acupoint, its volume would have to be reduced by 2 times. The stalemate continued. Cao tried several ways to change the impact of the death energy, but to no avail. The death energy in Nian Bing's body had become extremely firm due to the compression. This was the first time she tried to help a human to convert. Everything before was probably just an idea. When she really encountered such trouble in practice, she didn't know what to do. Nian Bing was also condensing the death energy. Her senses were much stronger than Cao's. Her body was full of surging life energy. She had never felt so real as at this moment. The feeling of survival was so wonderful. The surging life energy constantly rushed into her body, and her thoughts spread out outside her body. She could clearly see that the life domain that was originally full of life energy was gradually changing. Although the plants that were full of vitality didn't wither, they didn't have the strong life aura that they used to have. The biggest change was in the Lake of Life. The clear lake water gradually became a little turbid. The Lake of Life in the outer circle had lost its life aura, and the huge life energy was constantly pouring into her body. Just as Cao said, in this surging life energy, the magical power that had disappeared before was condensed again. Moreover, it became more condensed than before, and the volume of the magical power was also larger. She couldn't help but want to shout, "I'm alive again. I'm really alive again." Cao communicated with the other soul in her body, Tianxiang, and made a bold choice. Nian Bing's body recovered all its senses. Just when she was inexplicably excited, Tianxiang suddenly withdrew her hand from his chest. In the ripples of the water, her perfect body floated forward. Separating the ripples, the 2 walls wrapped around Nian Bing's waist and back, completely sticking to his strong body. Cold was Nian Bing's first feeling. In an instant, he had already stuck to himself. His mind went blank for a moment. Immediately after, his body suddenly changed. It was the complete opposite of his ice-cold body. In an instant, it became hot. Even Nian Bing himself didn't expect that the reaction would become so intense. In fact, this phenomenon wasn't because of the desire in Nian Bing's heart. He had just recovered a huge amount of life energy. Such surging life energy would naturally awaken the most primitive desire in his heart. Moreover, Cao's body was the best in the world. That most perfect body was irresistible to any man. There was a loud bang in his brain. Countless surging life energy surged in from the place where the 2 bodies joined. That cold and smooth skin and Nian Bing's burning skin came in contact. Under the situation where his senses were strengthened 100 times, Nian Bing only felt his blood boiling, as if it was going to burst out of his body. The male reaction naturally rose, pressing against Cao's abdomen. He, who had just recovered the ability to move, subconsciously hugged Cao, tightly hugging her body in front of him. If it wasn't for the fact that he still had a trace of clarity in his mind, he might have already broken through. The reason why Cao hugged Nian Bing and had no gap between their bodies was because only in this way could she exert her life energy to the extreme, completely pouring it into Nian Bing's body, helping him to resist the final pressure of the death energy. However, although she had lived for 50,000 years, this was the first time in her life that she had such an intimate foundation with a man. When she hugged Nian Bing, she suddenly felt as if she was hugging a huge furnace. A strange feeling that she had never experienced before instantly spread throughout her body. She clearly felt that her life energy seemed to have been stimulated and surged out. Her clear mind immediately fell into a daze, especially when the burning object pressed against her lower abdomen, causing her heart to be in chaos. For a moment, she actually forgot the reason why she hugged Nian Bing. Feeling that strange feeling, her body became even colder. The surrounding water rippled, constantly attacking their bodies. The two of them were in this strange feeling. Their souls gradually merged, and the sound of their heartbeats gradually increased. The life energy was no longer just being transferred from Cao's body into Nian Bing's body. At the same time, it also continuously flowed out from Nian Bing's body, forming a strange cycle between the two of them. The death energy gradually shrank under the effect of the sudden surge of life energy and could no longer resist. The lust in his body grew stronger and stronger. Nian Bing's instinctive reaction was stimulated by the hundredfold increase in his senses. This intense stimulation was even more unbearable than the intense pain from before. However, even though he knew where to vent, he still restrained himself. He wanted to use his longing for Feng Nu, Ling Er, and Lan Shun to dispel the desire in his heart. However, in this situation, how could he do it? At this time, his heart only had Cao, whom he had carefully observed before. His hands that were hugging her delicate body unconsciously moved up and down. His left hand slowly slid to Cao's beautiful and plump buttocks, and subconsciously drew her lower body closer to him. Only that cold body could weaken his desire a little. No, I can't. Nian Bing's body could no longer coordinate with his will. Although his heart kept stopping himself, his body, which was about to explode, became more and more unable to bear the current situation. Especially when he stroked that delicate and beautiful buttocks, his desire suddenly rose to the peak. Cao's body was gently moved up in the water by him. Her lower body gradually moved forward, gently touching that mysterious triangular area. As a powerful true god, Cao was actually trembling slightly. Her vitality was completely stimulated by this strange feeling. She clearly felt that she was stronger than ever, and the man who was hugging her was so handsome, so perfect. Cao's heart gradually softened. She had forgotten her plan and what she was going to do. Her slender, round, and elastic legs slowly separated. The hand that was hugging Nian Bing's waist slowly moved up and hugged his neck. In the water, the two of them opened their eyes at almost the same time. The voluptuous softness in front of their chests pressed against Nian Bing's firm chest. Her emerald eyes and Nian Bing's eyes, which had returned to azure, stared at each other. Their vitality had become the bridge between them. Cao's beauty was suffocating and holy. Nian Bing could no longer hold back the desire in his heart. He lowered his head, pushed away the water ripples, and gently pressed his lips on her soft red lips. Nian Bing's and scorching heat's two completely different breaths respectively entered their bodies. A comfortable moan sounded in their hearts at the same time. Gently opening the soft lips, Nian Bing found the smooth and fragrant tongue and wantonly sucked it. He held Cao's waist with one hand and just grabbed that white and perfect buttocks with the other. Cao gradually turned from a jerk to a fiery one. The most primitive manifestation of life made her enter an incomparably wonderful realm. Her slender legs slowly moved up the outside of Nian Bing's legs, wrapping around his waist, releasing the high spirits that had been blocking her. With the scorching and firm high spirits constantly touching her softest parts, Cao's heart trembled violently. Nian Bing put both hands on Cao's buttocks and gently lifted them up, making her body more compatible with him. He slowly moved his hands down, firmly holding on to the soft petals, and forced them in little by little. Cow let out a low moan, escaping from Nian Bing's deep kiss. She tightly wrapped her arms around his neck and shoulders, and her nails had already sunk into his firm back muscles. She was afraid, she was nervous, and at the same time, she was eager. The soft center slowly moved downwards, and a warm feeling continuously came from the water. At the same time, it also passed into the depths of their souls from where they were joined. Every time he moved forward, he would encounter great resistance. The tight flower stem ling Nian Bing's desire increased. Suddenly, he encountered a layer of obstruction. He knew from experience that this was Cao's last barrier. He barely restrained himself from stopping. His hands were also trembling, and his life energy was fluctuating violently. He didn't know if he should continue, but the arrow was already on the bow. It was easier said than done not to release it. Raising her head, Cao looked deeply at Nian Bing with a complicated gaze. Suddenly, she bit on Nian Bing's shoulder. Nian Bing's whole body shook. His hands subconsciously went down, and his body straightened up. Cao spasmed violently, and the last barrier was finally broken. Nian Bing instantly entered the deepest part of the tight flower stem and reached the strange and wonderful center of the flower. Life energy completely erupted. Amidst the violent rumbling, Nian Bing's body felt extremely comfortable. Last time, when he was together with Lan Shun, his and Lan Shen's minds were stimulated by the medicinal effects. This time, under the effects of 100 times stronger senses, he felt it so deeply. The moment he broke through the obstruction, his heart was also released. He tightly grasped that soft butt and merged himself with Cao even more deeply. The green life energy seemed to be burning, pushing the desperately resisting death energy into the Li Zhong point in an instant. The reborn body was completely merged with the life energy and revived. Faint green light surrounded Cao and Luan Bing. Amidst the tearing pain in her lower body, Cao was pleasantly surprised to find that her life energy seemed to have broken through a bottleneck that she had longed to break through for a long time. Meanwhile, Nian Bing's body was greedily sucking in her life energy. The increase in life energy made Nian Bing's desire reach its peak. The tightness in her lower body became even more comfortable with the lubrication produced by the continuous stimulation. Amidst the rippling water, she began to gently move. With every movement, she would send him to the peak of bliss. Her movements gradually became stronger, and every impact was so firm and persistent. The increase in movement made Nian Bing's feelings even more profound. The feeling of bliss made her desire to explore the final peak even more. Pain continuously transmitted into Cao's soul. However, as the pain gradually became more intense, waves of numbness continuously transmitted. Especially when that high peak touched her delicate center of the flower, this feeling became even more intense. Every time Nian Bing sent her message, she would spasm. The mouth biting Nian Bing slowly loosened, and a moving moan transmitted into Nian Bing's ears along with the water. After receiving such sincere encouragement, Nian Bing's movements became even faster. As the speed increased, her movements became bigger and bigger, causing the surrounding water to continuously ripple. The life energy in the lake of life surged into their bodies. Not only was Nian Bing nourished, even Cao was benefiting. Nian Bing didn't know how long he had been going on for. He only felt that a very long time had passed. Every movement would push the feeling of bliss up a bit, and Cao also gradually began to match his movements. It was precisely in this situation that the two gradually became more familiar with each other. Cao's body also turned from cold to hot under Nian Bing's lead. That feeling was so wonderful, so moving. Finally, when the bliss reached its peak, the quantitative change triggered a qualitative change, and an indescribable happiness instantly erupted in the two's bodies. The seed of life, in the constant outburst, made Nian Bing and Cao have a trace of understanding of the source of life, especially Cao. In this case, as the god of life, her experience was much more profound than Nian Bing's. The surging life energy completely poured into the two's bodies at the last moment. Cao originally thought that the life energy he would lose by helping Yinbing not only didn't decrease, but also became more abundant than before. The peak of bliss began to decline. Yinbing tightly hugged Cao, enjoying the aftertaste of bliss. Suddenly, he clearly felt the life energy in his body tremble violently, crazily rushing to the lower part of his body, as if it had found a huge vent. Just as he woke up from his desire, Cao suddenly raised her head, her hands pressed hard on his shoulders, and her delicate body rose from the lake, directly rushing upwards. The place where the two joined separated, immediately bringing up a liquid of the source of life in the water. Cao diagonally rushed out of the water, her perfect, delicate body floating in the air in silence, the water droplets on her body constantly sliding down. She was surprised to find that the domain of life that should have become deathly still due to the loss of life energy had actually become full of vitality again. The lake of life was still as emerald as before, and the ripples she brought up when she came out of the water were gradually spreading into the distance. The plants on the shore were still the same as before, and the flowers were in full bloom, seeming to be more vibrant than before. Cao's body rose, while Yinbing's body sank to the bottom of the lake. He was very clear why Cao had suddenly left him. If she hadn't done so, he was afraid that his life energy would have been directly sucked into her body. Ling Yinbing felt as if he was immersed in a warm sea full of life. Traces of tiredness entered his brain, and his body and mind relaxed. He no longer had to gather his mental strength to resist. Closing his eyes, he felt the constant impact of the waves on his body, comfortably and relaxed, falling asleep. After the mutual exchange of life energy and death energy, although his body had been completely transformed, it still needed time to nourish and repair. The death energy on his chest had already condensed into a black pearl. Silence stayed in the Li Zhong acupoint, surrounded by a circle of emerald green light. His whole body was constantly flashing, and the 7 colors of light alternated. The black light on his chest and the 7 colors between his eyebrows were the most obvious, especially the 7 colors surrounded by the golden light, which seemed to represent the birth of a new domain. Cao floated in the air, absent-mindedly looking at everything around her, and didn't utter a word for a long time. Even she herself didn't know why such a situation had happened, but she didn't regret it at all. That unprecedented experience was deeply imprinted in her memory. Her beautiful face was constantly changing all kinds of expressions. She sniffed and smiled. All kinds of different moods were constantly changing. Is it beautiful? A black figure quietly separated from her body, and the energy body Tian Xiang floated beside her in silence. Didn't you also feel it? Why are you asking me? Cao's cold voice had a little more gentleness. Tian Xiang smiled faintly and said, "That's right. I also felt it. It turns out that humans can actually produce such a wonderful sense of beauty. Unfortunately, I'm not you. After all, we are 2 souls, and what I can feel is only a third of what you feel. Do you know? Right now, I'm very eager to do it with Yinbing again when I'm in control of my body and to properly experience that wonderful feeling. I think you should have received a lot of benefits just now." Cao smiled faintly and said, "Do you think that's important?" Tian Xiang smiled and said, "Yes. Of course it's not important. The experience and feelings you received are the most wonderful thing." Cao chuckled and said, "Even I didn't expect that such a situation would occur. Not only did my life force not weaken, it actually strengthened a lot. It also made me understand the source of a human's life force. Tell me, should I blame him or thank him? He's our first man." Tian Xiang shook her head and said, "No, he's only your first man, but not mine." Cao looked at Tian Xiang with a smile and said, "If you want it, it won't be difficult. When he wakes up, I think he won't reject you." Tian Xiang looked at Cao. "Won't reject him? No, you're wrong. Didn't you realize that before the 2 of you merged, Yinbing went through a fierce psychological struggle in his heart? If it wasn't for the 100 times senses that made him unable to bear the stimulation in all aspects, he might not have done anything with you. I can feel that he already has a lover in his heart. The union between the two of you is only the union of desire, and not the love that humans call love. Cao frowned and said, Tian Xiang, you're jealous. Tian Xiang smiled evilly and said, maybe. Why didn't I think that I could be like this with him? Cao, did you notice? After you merged with him, the compatibility between us also increased a little. Although it's only a small part, it's something that we've been pursuing for many years but have never been able to obtain. Cao laughed in spite of himself and said, do you think that we should have more sexual relations with him? If that can stop hurting him, I'm willing to give a try. Tian Xiang looked deeply at Cao and said in a deep voice, you're soft-hearted. He's your first man. I think it's easy for you to have feelings for him. However, please don't forget our purpose. I won't do anything with him. You're no longer awake, so I have to stay awake. He's our last reliance. Unless we have other ways, he won't change this. Cao wanted to say something, but looking at Tian Xiang's firm eyes, he didn't say anything. He sighed softly, and his gaze fell on the clear lake. The storm of ice and snow is my most beautiful vow. A beautiful voice sounded in the valley. Under the cluster of ice and snow, a blue figure slowly rose. There wasn't a trace of human aura, and the pure ice element covered everything around. A pair of huge blue wings spread out on both sides, making the blue figure float in the air in silence. Two figures, one red and one purple, floated in the air. The purple figure was also set off by the ice and snow, while the red figure lightly flapped a pair of wings that seemed to be formed by flames and arrived in front of the blue figure in the blink of an eye. The blue figure looked at them and sighed faintly. It's been a year and a half. The red figure flew in front of her. Yes, it's been a year and a half. How is he? We've been thinking about him, and he's also been thinking about us. Isn't that right? The purple figure's voice was gentle with a bit of sadness. It's been a year and a half. I miss him so much. Why don't you ask if he's doing well? 3 different graceful figures. They were Feng Nu, Long Ling, and Lan Shun. The 3 women looked at each other in the air. With the help of the 7 Dragon Kings, a year and a half had passed. Even the 7 Dragon Kings were surprised by their growth. What supported them was always the motivation in their hearts. Feng Nu smiled as she caught Long Ling's slender waist. Sister, you can't always let yourself be sad. Didn't I tell you before that we have to have faith in him? For us, he will definitely come back. Long Ling's eyes widened slightly, and she said, Sister, you don't have to comfort me. I know that you miss him no less than I do. Feng Nu glanced at Lan Shan beside her. Half a year ago, we should have gone to the Ice God Tower, but then we went into seclusion and delayed the time until now. If the 3 of us join forces, we have at least a 60% chance of success. Chun Chun, can you let go of everything in the past? Lan Chun lightly shook her head and said, Sister, I will never forget the kindness of raising me. After all, she is my master. I will definitely repay her kindness, but we can't wait any longer. In a while, let's go back and say goodbye to the 7 Dragon Kings, and then set off. Perhaps, after we fulfill Nian Bing's wish, he will also come back? After a year and a half of waiting, the 3 girls were actually already somewhat desperate. A year and a half had passed, and there was no news of Nian Bing at all. They completely vented all kinds of negative emotions in their hearts through cultivation. In order to lessen the pain of missing her, they could only train hard with all their might. They had asked the 7 Dragon Kings more than once about the method to go to the continent of God, but they were all stopped by the 7 Dragon Kings. The last time the Dragon God took Nian Bing to the continent of God, he had already taken a great risk and also consumed a lot of energy. The same thing couldn't be done again. Moreover, the 7 Dragon Kings had contacted the Dragon God once to ask about Nian Bing's situation, but the Dragon King told them that Nian Bing was still in treatment, and he didn't know the specific situation. Without Cao's permission, the Dragon God couldn't enter the domain of the God of Life. Chapter 184. If it wasn't for the fact that they hadn't received news of Nian Bing's death, the 3 girls would have broken down long ago. They didn't want to reveal too much sadness in their hearts, fearing that it would affect the other two girls. But in secret, they had shed countless tears, especially the simple-minded Longling. In terms of determination, she was far inferior to Feng Nu and Lan Shun. Every day after training, Longling would secretly find a place to silently cry Nian Bing's name. Feng Nu nodded and said, "All right, let's go back now." Longling suddenly raised her head and said, "Sister Feng Nu, I want to ask the 7 Dragon Kings to summon the Dragon God again and ask about Nian Bing's current situation. Maybe there's already news about Nian Bing? What if he comes back and can't find us?" Feng Nu looked at the pleading look in Longling's eyes and nodded gently. "Let's go back and try. Jing Er and Brother Garamandes should be back in 2 days. They've been back in Ice Snow City for a month." Although Shuejing had come to Ice Snow Mountain with Garamandes and their identities had been confirmed, she still missed her father and would occasionally go back to see Shueji. Longling also wanted to go back, but she was afraid that if she saw her father, he would never be able to come back. Nian Bing had helped Shueji fulfill his wish, and now the Ice Moon Empire's Magician Guild's position in the Ice Moon Empire was very different from before. Even their headquarters had been moved to Ice Snow City, and their power had greatly increased. Longling nodded and said, "We have to wait for Silence to come back before we leave. I still want her to ask about Father's situation for me." The 3 girls moved lightly, and under the 2 elements of ice and fire, they slowly moved towards the Dragon King's cave. Landing at the entrance of the cave, the 3 girls happened to meet the Ice Dragon King Sasaris. Sasaris looked at the 3 women and smiled. "You're back. Your realms have increased again. I really envy you humans for your speed of progress. If I could be like you humans and open my acupoints, my ability wouldn't have stagnated." No matter what kind of divine dragon it was, after reaching the Dragon King's realm, if one wanted to advance further, they could only cultivate the Dragon God's heart mantra. Otherwise, this bottleneck would be extremely difficult to break through. Feng Nu smiled and said, "Then we still have to thank you for your help, elder sister." As the Ice Dragon King, Sasaris was of great help to Lan Shun and Long Ling, who both cultivated ice magic. Sasaris glanced at Long Ling and smiled. "Linger, you're thinking of your Nian Bing again, aren't you? You little girl, don't cry so much. My heart aches just looking at you." Although her face was still cold, her occasional smile was very charming. Suddenly, the Ice Dragon King Sasaris' expression changed. "Not good. Something's wrong." At the same time, Feng Nu, Long Ling, and Lan Shen also felt a huge amount of energy coming from the Dragon Cave. This energy was very strange, and even with their Tianyan acupoints, they couldn't determine the true attribute of this energy. The 4 girls looked at each other and floated into the cave at the same time. Just as they rushed into the cave, they felt a huge amount of life force coming towards them. The speed at which they bounced out was twice as fast as the speed at which they rushed in. The other 5 Dragon King were also bounced out together with them. No one knew what happened. The 6 Dragon Kings looked at each other in dismay, their faces showing shock. They were all experts of the 12th step, plus Feng Nu's group of 3 who were at the 11th step. With such a powerful force, even the Dragon God couldn't force them out of the cave in an instant. Not to mention, ever since Dark Dragon King Kajiastus started cultivating the Dragon God Heart Sutra, his strength took a new leap and was already close to the 13th step. Earth Dragon King Fatso said in shock, "What's going on? Boss, don't tell me there's something in your cave." Dark Dragon King Kajiastus shook his head and said with a frown, "Impossible. When Demand Teddy and I first stayed here, we carefully explored the surroundings. This energy is too strange. What a powerful life force. What a powerful energy. It appeared without any warning." "Did you see anything just now?" Demand Teddy said, "I am Light Dragon King. My life force is the strongest. Just now, I seem to have seen a green hexagram. Not only did it have life force, it also seemed to have some spatial energy." Space Dragon King Kadiris nodded and said, "I also felt it, but this is the first time I felt this kind of spatial energy. It's too strange. What exactly is it? However, I can feel that this life force doesn't have any malice. It doesn't seem to be attacking us. Feng Nu sucked in a breath of cold air. If it's not an attack, then they all thought of the same problem. Facing this kind of situation, no one could say anything. For a moment, they didn't know what to do. Everyone didn't rashly rush into the cave again. The 6 Dragon King formed a semicircle, and 6 colored radiances flashed from their bodies at the same time. They kept increasing their energy, ready to react at any time. Feng Nu protected Lan Shun and Long Ling behind her, and relied on her firefighting aura to fill the gap left by Fire Dragon King Garamandes. Although she was a bit weaker, her phoenix flames weren't inferior to the flames of dragons. Combined with the power of the 6 Dragon Kings, they formed a 7-elemental barrier, sealing the cave entrance. Right at this moment, a lazy voice echoed in everyone's mind. What? My friends, my wives, are you going to welcome my return like this? A figure slowly walked out of the cave. He didn't walk fast, but each step was firm and powerful. He had a slender figure, a golden magic robe, and long golden hair draped over his back. His azure eyes were as bright as the stars, and a faint 7-colored radiance flickered behind him, setting off his tall figure. His handsome face revealed a sunny smile, and his star-like eyes were covered with a faint layer of mist. His affectionate gaze made everyone's heart tremble. He had returned. Nian Bing. These 2 words were a name that Feng Nu and the other 2 yearned for day and night. After a year and a half, he had finally returned. The life force surrounding his body was so real. Feng Nu could clearly feel that the current Nian Bing was just like the first time she saw him. Yes, he had returned. The red, blue, and purple figures almost simultaneously rushed in front of Nian Bing. They opened their arms. Nian Bing hugged the 3 women into his arms. At this moment, there was no need to say anything, because no words could express their longing for each other. Silence. Time passed as the 6 Dragon Kings smiled. Ever since Miordas reported the loss of the sealing bottle, they had never been as happy as they were now. The 3 women's hard weight had finally paid off. Their man had returned. The dragon's friend had returned. There was a low cough. It caused a ripple in the quiet and warm air. A short figure walked out from behind Nian Bing. Cough, cough, Nian Bing. Aren't you going to introduce me? Ah. Nian Bing woke up from the joy of reunion. Looking at the 3 women who were weeping, he hurriedly said, Come, let me introduce you. This is my good brother, Halogen of the Dwarf Clan. Halogen, these 3 are my confidants, my wives, and also your sister-in-law. At this moment, he hurriedly introduced the 3 women and the 6 Dragon King to the Dwarf Clan warrior who had returned with him. The 3 women didn't object to Nian Bing's introduction. The wait wasn't in vain. They waited for their most beloved man to return and also waited for Nian Bing's promise. There was no grand ceremony, but from this moment on, they all knew that they completely belonged to this man. Kagiosis walked in front of Nian Bing and grabbed his shoulder. The Dark Dragon King, who had always been calm, was trembling with excitement. Good, you're finally back. Nian Bing, you were gone for too long this time. Nian Bing smiled and said, Yes, I'm finally back. Even I didn't expect that I would be gone for so long. Are you all right? Is everyone all right? Kagiosis smiled and nodded. We're all right. Everything is the same as before. It's just that your 3 wives have been waiting for a long time. You have to comfort them properly. Nian Bing took a deep look at the 3 women. Feng Nu looked at him with a gentle gaze. Lan Chen's eyes were filled with passion, and Long Ling's shyness was filled with excitement. Their expressions were the same. Nian Bing took a deep look at the 3 women. Feng Nu looked at him with a gentle gaze. Lan Chen's eyes were filled with passion, and Long Ling's shyness was filled with excitement. Their expressions were the same, but their thoughts were the same. He felt so blessed to have such wives. Space Dragon King Kadiris came over. He laughed mischievously and said, Yes, Nian Bing, if you didn't come back, your 3 wives would have turned into slugs. Who are you calling a slug? The 3 women shouted coquettishly at the same time, scaring Kadiris and making him jump back a step. That funny and awkward look immediately made everyone burst into laughter. Demand Teddy said, Nian Bing, was it Dragon God Sama who sent you back? But what's with the life aura just now? Nian Bing said with a smile, no, it's not that. It was a friend of mine from the continent of gods who sent us back. Demand Teddy hesitated for a moment before saying, then Kaka. Nian Bing smiled faintly, and the space between his eyebrows shone brightly. A golden halo floated out along with the colorful light. A loud dragon roar rolled out, and a light projection was projected from the space between his eyebrows. Suddenly, another energy form of Nian Bing appeared in front of him. It's just that this Nian Bing wasn't wearing clothes, and his whole body was covered with a layer of golden gray scales. Mom, I'm back too. It was Kaka's voice. Although the appearance was the same, the voice and aura were completely different. Demand Teddy didn't have time to be surprised. She took a step forward and hugged her son into her arms. Kaka, a warm atmosphere spread in front of the dragon cave, and the temperature in the cold mountain range didn't seem to be that low. Halogen looked at this reunion scene and couldn't help but lower his head somewhat sadly. He thought of his own clansmen and thought of his mother. Nian Bing slept in the Lake of Life for half a year, and only then did he truly complete the process of life reconstruction. In half a year, Tianxiang had already restored the Lake of Death. When Nian Bing woke up, she taught him a lot of theoretical knowledge together with Cao. Nian Bing's strength had been greatly improved, and he had finally entered the threshold of the 12th Order. Cao had told him that he was now like a huge treasure trove. As long as he kept digging, his future would be limitless. As for the scene in the lake, they didn't mention it. Nian Bing once asked about it with some shame, but Cao told him that it was just a coincidence. After staying on the continent of gods for half a year, no matter what the reason was, Nian Bing, while constantly learning theoretical knowledge, wholeheartedly brewed the 100 flowers due for Cao and Tianxiang. He only brought back a very small part for himself. After that, Cao informed the dragon god that Nian Bing had been resurrected, and the dragon god returned Nian Bing to him. Under the influence of Cao's huge strength, Nian Bing was sent back to the Yangon continent. After rejoicing, everyone returned to the dragon cave. Katerios couldn't help but ask about Nian Bing's situation on the continent of gods. As for Cao's matter, Nian Bing didn't say much, nor did he give a perfunctory answer. He just shook his head to Katerios' question. Some things couldn't be said casually. After all, it involved too much. As for Halogen, he only briefly introduced him, saying that Halogen was his friend and that it was the dragon god who asked him to bring Halogen to the Yangon continent. Katerios used to be a part of the Lost Continent, so he had a lot of feelings for the races of the Lost Continent. Naturally, he wouldn't say much. Kaka, what about you? What did you and the dragon god learn? Why was Nian Bing able to separate you from his body? Demand Teddy was most concerned about her son. Kaka smiled and said, Mom, I learned a lot of things from the dragon god, and I finally figured out the attribute of my ability. With the help of the dragon god, I discovered that my ability belongs to a kind of form called non-attribute. It's a very special ability. I can use this ability to display any kind of magic effect through the instant conversion of energy. In other words, I can be regarded as a dragon of any kind. It's just that I can't use two kinds of abilities at the same time. This is a bit worse than Nian Bing's fusion magic. Nian Bing said with a smile, Are you still not satisfied? Although you can't use multiple kinds of abilities at the same time, you can be proficient in each kind. This is an advantage that I don't have. Moreover, I always feel that your non-attribute ability is special. As long as you work hard to cultivate the Dragon King Heart Sutra, you will definitely become a powerful Dragon King in the future. Hasn't your Dragon God Heart Sutra already reached the 4th level? During this period of time, my spiritual force has made some progress. Kaka's body is now formed by my spiritual force combined with magical elements. In fact, his soul is still in my body and can't be separated. It's just that he shows his current appearance through remote control. However, being able to reach this step, I think it shouldn't take too long to separate his soul and reconstruct his body. This is also inseparable from Kaka's own efforts. Compared to when he left, he is now much more powerful. Kaka put on a smug look and said with a smile, Of course, who am I? I'm the successor of the dragon god. Kadiri said in a bad mood. You don't learn anything good, but you want to learn from that guy, Kadiris. You have to remember that you can be where you are today because of the tolerance of the dragon god. Only by working harder and doing your best for us dragons in the future can you repay the kindness of the dragon god. Kaka stuck out his tongue and said, I know, father. Kadiri said discontentedly. I say, boss, can you not involve me in your lesson? Who did I provoke? Kadiris ignored Kadiris, stood up, and said, Let's go outside and exercise. Brother Daolun, you also come with me. I will take you to see the scenery of the Yangon continent. Dragon King and Kaka walked out of the cave with the dwarf warrior Daolun. Kadiris' meaning was very simple. He wanted to leave the space in the cave to Nian Bing and his 3 lovers. The pain of the 3 women's longing was seen by the Dragon King and the others. Nian Bing finally returned. So how could they delay the reunion time of the 4 people? Nian Bing and the 3 women were left. At this time, he didn't know what to say. He just looked at them in silence, and tenderness surged in his heart. He slowly pulled the right hand of the 3 women. His left hand was at the bottom, and his right hand was at the top, feeling the excited heartbeat of the 3 women. His heart was intoxicated. The first to speak was Feng Nu. Nian Bing, you are back, I want to go. She seemed to have spent a lot of effort to say this sentence. As soon as her voice fell, she lowered her head sadly. Nian Bing was anxious. Feng Nu, what's wrong with you? Don't you believe in my love for you? Or you still don't forgive me? The Wind Girl shook her head and said, The past is the past, but I have to go now. During the time you left, there have been earth-shaking changes in the continent. Nian Bing sighed. As long as Feng Nu didn't blame him, other things would be much easier to deal with. He wanted to say something, but Feng Nu continued. Originally, I wanted to go with Ling Er and Chun Chun to the Ice God Pavilion to save Uncle and Annie. I also helped you to fulfill your wish. Now that you are back, I can see that not only have you recovered your vitality, but your strength has also increased greatly. You can go with them. With Chin Chin's familiarity with the Ice God Pavilion, she should be able to save them without me. There have been changes in the continent? What do you mean? Nian Bing asked. He held the 3 women's hands tightly at the same time. It wasn't easy to come back, and he really didn't want to be separated from the 3 women. Feng Nu looked up at Shi Bing and said, The changes were caused by Huarong Emperor Garden. Half a year after you left, the Huarong Empire launched a war against the Longmu Empire. However, this time, the enemy was not the Longmu Empire. It was the neighboring Qilu Empire. Under the leadership of your grandfather, Prince Rong, the Huarong Empire, with the Order of the Fire Dragon and the Order of the Flaming Lion as the core, suddenly launched a war against the Qilu Empire. In a short 3 months, not a single city or territory was lost. They directly attacked the Qilu Empire's capital, and with the arrival of the reinforcements, they captured the Qilu Empire's king and forced the Qilu Empire to submit. In another 3 months, the Qilu Empire was firmly under their control. They paid the smallest price to expand their territory by 2/5. They occupied a large area in the south. Hearing this news, Nian Bing couldn't help but be shocked. The Qilu Empire was one of the 5 great empires of the continent. Although it wasn't as strong as the Huarong Empire, nor was it as rich as the Longmu Empire, it was still one of the strongest empires. It was much stronger than the Ottoman Empire. However, it was actually destroyed by the Huarong Empire in just half a year. This news was truly enough to shake the entire continent. Shi Bing had only heard of the Order of the Fire Dragon before. He could faintly feel that the reason why the Huarong Empire was able to defeat the other 2 empires and take over the Qilu Empire was due to the sudden appearance of this powerful Night Order. Thinking of the Bloodline sect's huge underground network, as well as the many years of operation of the Huarong Emperor's Garden, destroying the Qilu Empire wasn't too difficult. When it came to commanding a war in the entire Yangon continent, there was no one who could compare to his grandfather. After pondering for a while, Nian Bing said, I'm afraid that Grandpa's plan for the war against the Qilu Empire was far-sighted. First, he used his elite troops to launch a surprise attack on the Longmu Empire, dealing a devastating blow to the Longmu Empire's elite knights. Furthermore, he plundered and burned the rich plains in the south of the Longmu Empire. Not only did he obtain a large amount of precious resources, he also temporarily paralyzed the Longmu Empire's production. The reason why grandfather didn't covet the Longmu plains and consolidate his territory in the Longmu Empire was mainly because the Longmu Empire had a large amount of land and resources. They had been recuperating for many years, and their strength wasn't something that could be defeated in one blow. Once the other empires started a war with the Hwarong Empire, fighting on 2 or even 3 fronts, the Hwarong Empire would be caught in a dilemma. Therefore, grandfather only took a large amount of resources and scattered them back to his own empire. After this war, not only did the Hwarong Empire's prestige become a great deterrent to the other 3 empires, it also temporarily damaged the strength of the Longmu Empire, making them unable to invade the south. In that war, the losses of the Hwarong Empire were almost negligible. It could be said that it was an extremely successful war. The large amount of resources that were seized back made the Hwarong Empire unprecedentedly powerful. After some adjustments, they stationed a small number of troops near the border with the Longmu Plains. Relying on the natural defenses, they made the Longmu Empire not dare to make the slightest move. After that, they used the strength of the entire empire to launch a surprise attack on the Qilu Empire. Using the resources obtained from the Longmu Empire as the foundation, they succeeded in one fell swoop. Because of the previous war, the Ottoman Empire was unable to intervene. They were currently in a state of recuperation and could only watch as this happened. It really was a perfect strategy. Feng Nu smiled slightly and praised. You weren't on the continent, but you saw it with your own eyes. It was indeed so. After the Qilu Empire fell into the hands of the Hwarong Empire, the Longmu Empire finally reacted. They mobilized their army and wanted to take advantage of the Hwarong Empire's internal defenses to launch a war. Unfortunately, Prince Rong led his 2 main cavalry forces back to the northern front as quickly as possible. Relying on the natural defenses, they once again defeated the Longmu Empire, causing them to be unable to take a single step forward. The initial fruits of victory were already set. Nian Bing looked at Feng Nu and said, I'm afraid you're worried about Mother's situation in the Ottoman Empire. What happened after that? What happened in the next 9 months? Could it be that the Hwarong Empire also launched an attack on the Ottoman Empire? That's impossible. After all, the Qilu Empire is a large country. The Hwarong Empire must have paid a heavy price to invade its territory. They also needed to consolidate their victory, so it would be difficult for them to launch another attack on the Ottoman Empire. Feng Nu smiled bitterly. You're really smart. That's right. I'm worried about Mother. Your predictions were all correct, but you still underestimated your grandfather and Emperor Huatian. When your grandfather launched an attack on the Qilu Empire, the Hwarong Empire's Prime Minister, Su Yu, had already led a diplomatic mission to the Ottoman Empire. He wanted to convince the Ottoman Empire to submit to the Hwarong Empire. It was because of this diplomatic mission that the Ottoman Empire, who should have been helping the Qilu Empire, lost their best chance. When the Qilu Empire was destroyed, the Hwarong Empire's Eastern Army and Northeastern Army each sent half of their forces to guard the border. The Ottoman Empire no longer had any chance. Although I don't know what exactly happened, that Prime Minister, Su Yu, was very powerful. I'm afraid he wasn't any weaker than your grandfather. Right now, the 2 empires are in the midst of negotiations. The Hwarong Empire has offered generous conditions for Alin to submit to them, allowing the Ottoman Empire to be autonomous. The only condition is that they have to submit to the Hwarong Empire and pay tribute every year. Nian Bing's eyes flashed. The Ottoman Empire won't agree to it, right? You have to know, if the Ottoman Empire submitted to the Hwarong Empire, then the Hwarong Empire could use the Ottoman Empire's geographical advantage to attack the isolated Langbin Empire at any time. The natural mountain range between the 2 empires would no longer be of any use. As long as the ruler of the Longmu Empire isn't an idiot, he definitely wouldn't allow such a thing to happen. Feng Nu nodded. That's right. When the Longmu Empire's attack on the Hwarong Empire failed, they immediately sent a powerful envoy to the Ottoman Empire to lobby. According to Shuejing's information, the three empires are currently in negotiations. Nianbing thought for a moment, then said, the Longmu Empire probably wants to use their economic strength to support the Ottoman Empire, intending to form an alliance. This is the only way to prevent the Hwarong Empire from invading the north. Now, it's up to the Ottoman Empire to decide. The Hwarong Empire isn't afraid of Shi Yan. After all, they have obtained the Qilu Empire's territory. The longer they drag things out, the more advantageous it is for them. As long as they use the resources they have obtained to reorganize their army, with my grandfather's command, in the near future, even if Alland and Longmu work together, they probably won't be able to stop the Hwarong Empire's attack. Grandfather, it seems like you really want to unify the entire continent in your lifetime. Feng Nu said, originally, when you didn't come back, I couldn't have placed my thoughts on other things. But now that you're back, Mother needs help. With Chun Chun and Ling accompanying you, I can rest assured. Since young, I haven't been able to be filial to my parents, so I won't go to Alland City to do my part. Lan Chun suddenly said, Sister, I'll go back with you. Feng Nu looked at his sister with a gentle gaze, then shook his head and said, No, you don't have to go back with me. Nian Bing needs your help to go to the Ice God camp. Only you are familiar with the situation there. In fact, how can the two of us influence the political situation? I'm just doing my best. You should know better than me what kind of person Father is. I'm afraid that no matter what happens to the Ottoman Empire, he won't leave. Nian Bing, I know you're from the Hwarong Empire. Don't worry, I won't make things difficult for you. Nian Bing's eyes flashed. Seeing the reluctance in the Wind Girl's eyes, he suddenly laughed. Silly girl, how can I let you go back by yourself? Since you're going, then let's go together. They're not just your parents, they're also my parents. As for my biological father and daughter, ever since Chun Chin told me that they're together, I'm no longer worried. I believe that they'll forgive me for saving them a little later. I know my father very well. As long as he can be with my mother, he's willing to do anything no matter where. Feng Nu's body trembled slightly. Looking at the smiling Nian Bing, her heart started to burn. How could she be willing to leave Nian Bing, who had just returned? Hearing Nian Bing's words, she could feel his deep feelings. Nian Bing held the three girls' hands tightly and said, Intelligence is our priority. We don't have to rush to the Ottoman Empire. Even if we go there, we'll be in the dark. Only by grasping the current situation can we make the best decision. So, I want to go to Ice Moon City first and find out about the current situation in the continent. Yin Feng is my good brother. I think he's not having a good time right now. With the situation in the continent so chaotic, it's hard for the Ice Moon Empire to stay out of it. I want to hear his opinion. He hadn't been to the Bloodlion cult for a year and a half. With the Bloodlion cult intelligence network, he could clearly know what was happening in the continent. He could also better understand the current situation and make decisions. Nian Bing's heart was very conflicted. On one side was his grandfather and family, while on the other side was his godmother, Feng Nu, and Lan Chen's mother. Moreover, there was also Yin Feng. Since the Hwarong Empire had already started a war, then, according to the current situation, the flames of war would spread to the Ice Moon Empire one day. He always felt a bit guilty towards Yin Feng and wanted to find a chance to help him. And now it was the best time. Feng Nu let out a sigh of relief. Lan Chen also secretly let out a sigh of relief. She really didn't want to face her master, although she knew that there would be a day when she would. But now, she was more willing to choose to escape. As for Long Ling, seeing Nian Bing again, no matter what Nian Bing wanted to do, she wouldn't have any objections. Nian Bing, good brother, you're finally back. The excited voice shook the stone walls of the cave. This familiar voice made Nian Bing's heart warm. He stood up and shouted, Big Brother Garamandes, I'm here. Chapter 185. A red figure passed through the passageway like a flame, and a familiar face appeared in front of her. Nian Bing's eyes were moist. Fire Dragon King Garamandes was still the same as before, and his dragon eyes revealed strong emotions. Among the 7 Dragon Kings, Garamandes was the one who had the deepest relationship with Nian Bing. It was this fire dragon king who gradually led Nian Bing into the ranks of the strong. The brotherhood between them could no longer be expressed with words. Sizing up Nian Bing, Garamandes grabbed her shoulders with both hands and laughed, saying, "Good, good brother, you're indeed back. Not bad. Looks like you've completely recovered. My dad is really something to be able to bring you back to life like that." Nian Bing smiled and said, "Big brother, how'd you been these days? You and Shu Edging." Garamandes puffed out his chest and said, "Do you still need to ask? Your big brother is so handsome and suave, and Jing has long been mine. She can't wait to have a good husband like me. But you're still good, getting 3 in one go. Who do you think can't wait, hmm?" Amidst a delicate snort, a graceful figure walked in with large strides, directly to Garamandes' side, and grabbed his ear. Her gaze fell on Nian Bing, and it was Shu Edging. Garamandes cried out in pain, I can't wait. Miss, be gentler. Although my dragon ears are very sturdy, I can't stand it if you pull them every day." Although he was crying out in pain, it was obviously faked, and there was a hint of sweetness in his eyes. Even Shu Edging, who was pulling his ear, had a smile on her face. Obviously, this was something that happened often. Nian Bing giggled and said, "Shu Edging, I haven't seen you for more than a year, and you're still the same." Shu Edging snorted in annoyance and said, "You still know to come back. You made our Ling, and 2 sisters so sad. I really want to beat you up. Garamandes, fix him for me." She knew that she couldn't beat Nian Bing. Garamandes smiled bitterly and said, "I can't beat 4 of them by myself. It's not like you don't know how fast Feng Nu and the others have improved. If I were to make a move on Nian Bing, I'm afraid that the first one to come would be your good sister. Nian Bing, you came back at the right time. Right now, the Yangon continent is in chaos." Hearing the first half of his words, Long Ling and the other 2 girls couldn't help but blush. At the same time, they looked at Nian Bing. At this moment, they only had eyes for their loved ones. Nian Bing nodded and said, "I've already heard from Feng Nu. I didn't expect that more than a year had passed. There were so many changes in the continent. Oh, right, Shu Edging, how's the God of Cookery tournament?" Nian Bing felt extremely regretful that she couldn't participate in this year's God of Cookery tournament. At this time, more than a year had passed, and the results were definitely out. Shu Edging sighed softly and said, "What else can it be? Since you're not here, Uncle Ming naturally went to battle. However, Uncle Ming and his junior sister teamed up, but they didn't even get a place. Right now, the cooking world is at its peak. Experts from all over the world are gathering, and it's too difficult to win the title of God of Cookery. In the cooking world, this year's God of Cookery tournament is hailed as the most valuable tournament after the retirement of the 5 great divine chefs. It's a pity that I couldn't go. I really wanted to see that scene." Nian Bing's eyes shone brightly. "If I'm not wrong, the final champion should be someone called Little Tian. At the very least, he should be in the top 3. Shu Edging said in surprise, "You even know this? Didn't you just come back?" "That's right. It's that person called Little Tian. I heard from Uncle Ming that this Little Tian is extremely strong. Uncle Ming said that even you might not be able to win against him. His culinary skills are too miraculous. Even the 2 people who are his assistants are top-notch chefs. The 3 of them teamed up and defeated the other heroes in the end, becoming the champion of this year's tournament." Nian Bing smiled faintly and said, "That's within my expectations. I've fought Little Tian once before, and we were evenly matched. With his yin-yang harmony Tai Chi hand, which is the top of the 7 great forbidden hands, if he still couldn't become the champion, I would find it strange. Yin-yang harmony Tai Chi hand. Yes, that's it. Moreover, his first assistant is also very strong. That person called Momo or something. The 2 of them cooperated perfectly and didn't give the other contestants any chance. They almost became the champion of all the events. Sai, it's a pity that you weren't here. Otherwise, we would have a chance to fight against them." Nian Bing was shocked. "Momo is Little Tian's assistant? How is that possible?" Back then, during the Hualong Culinary Challenge, Momo was a super chef who was second only to him and Little Tian. She was actually willing to be little Tian's assistant. This was something that Nian Bing didn't expect. Xu Weijing said, "What's there not to know? That's their business. Nian Bing, I don't care. There's still 3 years before the next God of Cookery tournament. At that time, you must put down everything you're doing and compete for our clear wind fasting. No matter what, you must get first place so that we can hold our heads high." However, little Tian didn't seem very excited about becoming the champion. Uncle Ming said that little Tian mentioned an opponent who didn't participate in the competition at the end of his speech. That was the opponent he wanted to see. Could it be that he was talking about you? Nian Bing's eyes flashed. Little Tian, are you really waiting for me? I've disappointed you this time. However, I think that the next time will be when we decide the winner. 3 years' time was enough for him to deal with everything. Thinking of this, he nodded resolutely and said, "Xu Weijing, even if you didn't say it, I would definitely fight with him once. Let's see if his yin-yang harmony and tai chi hands are stronger or if my overall strength is stronger." The increase in his magic power had greatly increased Nian Bing's comprehension in all aspects. When one's culinary skills reached his level, there was no need to practice too much. Comprehension in one's heart was the key. Xu Weijing's simple words had already filled his heart with fighting spirit. Although it wasn't time to fight yet, he already saw little Tian as his strongest culinary opponent. The stronger his opponent was, the more excited Nian Bing was. Only by continuously surpassing his opponent and himself could his culinary skills become more perfect. Xu Weijing said, "That's good. As long as you're willing to participate in the tournament for us, we'll forget about the matter of leaving for more than a year. Treat our Ling well in the future." Nian Bing smiled and said, "I will." "Xu Weijing, you just came back from the Ice Moon Empire. Have there been any changes in the continent? Do you know how the negotiations with the Ottoman Empire are going? How will the Ottoman Empire decide?" Xu Weijing shook her head and said, "I'm not too sure. I've never cared about politics. We run a hotel. No matter how turbulent the continent is, people still have to eat. What does politics have to do with us?" At this point, her expression suddenly changed as if she thought of something. "Oh, right. There's something I should tell you. Right now, not only is the Ottoman Empire's situation not good, the Ice Moon Empire situation isn't very good either. Your good brother Yin Feng is very vexed right now. That's because he received an invitation from the Huarong Empire. They invited the Ice Moon Empire to send an envoy to the Huarong Empire to participate in some Four Nations public assembly." Nian Bing frowned and said, "Four Nations public assembly? What's that? What does the Huarong Empire want to do?" Xu Weijing shook her head and said, "I'm not too sure about that. However, this public assembly seems to have been proposed by the Huarong Empire and the Longmu Empire. Before I came back, I seem to have seen an envoy from the Longmu Empire come to the Ice Moon Empire and pass by Ice Snow City. They should be going to Ice Moon City. I really don't know what they want to do. The Ice Moon Empire is only at the average level among the countries. Because of the Ice Goddess Priest, they have become a powerful country. However, ever since Yin Feng inherited the throne, the Ice God Tower's attitude towards the Ice Moon Empire seemed to be somewhat cold. They didn't even send any experts to protect Yin Feng. The situation now is very delicate. I'm afraid only your brother knows the specifics." Nian Bing nodded and looked at Feng Nu and the other two girls. She said, "Looks like my choice was correct. Then let's go to Ice Moon City first. No matter what the public assembly of the Four Nations is going to discuss, before the assembly ends, the Ottoman Empire won't easily promise anything. Perhaps we can directly see Mother and the others in the Huarong Empire." Feng Nu nodded and said, "Everything will be arranged by you. We'll listen to you." Garamandes looked at Nian Bing. At this time, Xu Weijing had already let him go. "Brother, you just came back, and you're already in a hurry to leave? Why don't you stay a few more days to accompany us?" Nian Bing smiled bitterly. "Right now, the continent is in turmoil. My grandfather, Feng Nu, and Qinshin's parents are all involved in this struggle. Although we may not be able to do much, we should at least try our best. At the very least, we have to ensure the safety of our loved ones. I don't want to see a bad situation. Otherwise, how can I be at ease?" He was indeed somewhat conflicted in his heart, but the conflict wasn't very strong. This time, the biggest difference between him and before was that his confidence had greatly increased. Not only because of his increased strength, but also because of the evolution of his Tian Yin acupoint. It allowed him to have a clearer control of the general situation. With his and Feng Nu's combined strength, it was definitely a terrifying small group. Although it might not be able to influence the political situation, Nian Bing was confident that he could deal with it. The results would depend on their efforts. Moreover, as the leader of the Bloodline sect, Nian Bing had the largest underground force. This was one of the reasons why he was so confident in himself. Right now, the situation wasn't very clear. There were still many things that could be done. Right now, he only hoped that there wouldn't be any changes in the Bloodline sect after not returning for more than a year. Garamendi smiled and said, "Then you can go. Whenever you want to come back, we'll all be here waiting for you." Nian Bing, do you still remember those people who snatched Miordis's bottle of sealing? A cold light flashed in Nian Bing's eyes, and she said, "Yes, of course I remember. Those people left a deep impression on me." Evil Moon's figure flashed in her mind. At that time, she had almost lost her life in front of these experts of the dark forces. How could she not remember? Garamendi said, "In about half a year, it will be the day of extreme Een that Lord Dragon God mentioned. Such a good opportunity is hard to come by in 100 years. I think those dark forces will never let go of this opportunity. They will definitely find a way to open the seal of Miordis's bottle of sealing. At that time, I hope you can stop them with us." There was a trace of hesitation in Nian Bing's eyes. She sighed and said, "Is it really right to stop them? Is the continent of gods really the domain of gods? I've been there before, and I know that it should be called hell. Brother Garamandes, it's not that I don't want to help you, but with the strength of Evil Moon's group, it's impossible for them to compete with the 7 Dragon Kings. What's more, as far as I know, the continent of gods will also send gods to help you." Garamandes said in surprise, "You don't want to participate? Have you forgotten how Evil Moon's group hurt you?" Nian Bing shook her head and said, "No, of course I won't forget. I don't have a good impression of Evil Moon's group, but my attitude towards the Lost Continent is different. Perhaps I think that the Lost Continent should return, and it will be better for our world." Garamandes looked at Nian Bing with some confusion. Nian Bing also looked at him. After a long while, Garamandes sighed and said, "Since you don't want to go, I won't force you. You can do as you see fit. The Lost Continent can't return. Otherwise, it will bring great turmoil to our world. No one can predict what will happen in advance. So, we must try our best to stop Miordis from opening the bottle of seal." Nian Bing was actually very hesitant. If it was for Halogen, of course, she was willing to let the Lost Continent return. Even if it was for the Yangon Continent, she was willing to let the Lost Continent return. After all, compared with the continent of gods, the Lost Empires seemed to be much stronger. However, her worry came from Evil Moon. Evil Moon's group was extremely evil. If they really followed the incantation and surrendered to Evil Moon after the return of the Lost Empire, she was afraid that the destruction to the human world would be no less than that of the continent of gods. At that time, a catastrophe would be inevitable. So, she was now hesitant and didn't know what she should do. Therefore, she rejected Garamandes's proposal. Everything would be decided by God. Who knew what God's will was? What she needed to do was to finish all the things she needed to deal with first. Feng Nu held Nian Bing's hand and looked at Garamandes, who was a little unhappy. Nian Bing looked back at her. He naturally understood what Feng Nu meant. Without Garamandes, there would be no Nian Bing today. This kindness must be repaid. Thinking of this, Nian Bing took a deep breath and said, "Big brother, don't be angry with me. You also came from the continent of gods. You should know more about the things there than I do. How about this? Although I may not help you, I may not be there when the time comes. If something happens that threatens you, I will not shirk my responsibility." Garamandes laughed and said, "Good, that's my good brother. Actually, I understand what you mean. The 7 Dragon Kings are willing to stay in the Yangon continent, not only because there's a good life here, but also because we don't want to deal with those gods. Those guys make me sick just looking at them. However, the Lost Continent has disappeared for tens of thousands of years. Who knows how they have developed? If they have developed to the point where the continent of gods can't catch up, I'm afraid our world will face a huge disaster. So, the less trouble the better. Since the gods' emissary war from 10,000 years ago was already decided, why should there be any more variables? All right, I won't disturb your little reunion. Silence, let's go out. After saying this, he looked deeply at Nian Bing and pulled Xue Qing out of the cave. Looking at their backs, Nian Bing fell into deep thought. Garamandes' words had his reasons. Yes, no one could predict what the lost continent would be like when they returned. 10,000 years ago, they were already able to defeat the continent of gods. If it wasn't for the three true gods, there would be no gods in the world. After 10,000 years of reproduction, who knew what happened to the lost continent? If there really were a few true gods, just the impact of their battle on the various continents would be. Thinking about this, Nian Bing felt relieved. At least, he no longer felt that Garamandes' idea was wrong. It was still the same feeling. Let nature take its course. These things didn't have much to do with him. What he needed to do was to protect his friends and family. That was enough for him. Thinking about this, he pulled the three women in front of him and hugged them into his broad arms. Feeling the beauty of fullness, he sighed inwardly. It was so good to be alive. Nian Bing only stayed in the Coal Mountain Range for one day. Early the next morning, he took Halogen and the three women to bid farewell to the 7 Dragon Kings. Originally, Xue Jing also wanted to leave with them, but Garamandes let her stay on the grounds that he couldn't protect Xue Jing. The day of extreme Een was approaching. The 7 Dragon Kings should also begin their final preparations. At this time, Garamandes couldn't leave casually. Wind, gently blowing the clouds in the sky. Nian Bing's eyes revealed a trace of gentleness. The air was a little cold. As the northernmost empire of the continent, this had always been the symbol of the Ice Moon Empire. This clean cold naturally didn't affect them. At this time, the mood of the 5 people was in a state of excitement. The 3 women finally waited for Nian Bing to return. No matter what difficulties they were about to face, they believed that as long as they were together with Nian Bing, nothing would be an obstacle. The most excited was Halogen. He had just arrived at this beautiful continent. It brought him a completely new feeling. At this time, with the help of Nian Bing's wind magic, flying in the air, looking at the blue sky, feeling the warm sunlight and the calm air, he really understood his mother's painstaking efforts. Yes, at that time, his mother chose to die for him. From the perspective of the dwarf race, this was definitely the right choice. It turned out that there really was such a beautiful place in the world. In this place, everything he came in contact with only existed in legends. To be able to feel all of this beauty, it could be said that it was a gift from his mother. Only by walking out of the cage of the god's continent could he see this wonderful world. Slowly flying, Nian Bing pulled Longling's hand. Among the 3 women, Longling's strength was slightly weaker. Although Halogen was strong, he didn't have the ability to fly. Feng Nu and Lan Shan followed behind them, spreading their red and blue wings. They always hoped that their beloved could be in front of them. After flying together for a day, when night gradually fell, the 5 people finally arrived near Ice Moon City. Nian Bing led the other 4 people and landed on a small hill. Brother Halogen, there are some things I need to tell you in advance. Nian Bing patted Halogen's shoulder. Halogen smiled honestly and said, Brother, if there's something you need to say, just say it. Nian Bing said, We're about to enter a human city. Your height is about 4 meters, which is quite eye-catching among human males. Moreover, there are many new things in the human world that you haven't seen before. I hope that no matter what you see, you can keep calm and try not to attract other people's attention. Okay? Halogen nodded and said, I understand what you mean, but other things are easy, but with my height, I'm afraid. Nian Bing smiled faintly and said, That's not a difficult task. I have a way. After saying that, his eyes flashed, and his right hand lightly waved forward. Light flickered, and an earth puppet that looked exactly the same as him appeared in front of him. After the 7 blades evolved into super divine tools, The earth puppets also had a solid form like Emperor Kurobutsu. Nian Bing thought for a moment and communicated with the earth puppet through her soul. The earth puppet's originally lifeless eyes became a bit more spirited. Nian Bing nodded. Nian Bing said to Halogen, "Brother, relax. I'll let the earth puppet fuse with your body. This way, you can change your appearance. Don't resist. It won't affect your battle strength. It will only change your appearance." Halogen nodded and said, "Then what are we waiting for? Come on. Brother Nian Bing, your magic is really amazing." Nian Bing smiled faintly. Although he was able to do this because of the power of the 7 divine blades, his spiritual power was more important. Only when his spiritual power reached his level could he truly control the 7 divine weapons. Yellow rays of light condensed around the body of the earth puppet. With a flash of light, the melody of Earth Awakens appeared in Nian Bing's hand. The yellow rays of light lost their original shape and gradually condensed into a ball, floating in front of Halogen. Halogen's dwarf divine armor shook and issued a slight buzzing sound. Halogen smiled faintly and used his mind to communicate with his precious armor. He relaxed his whole body and let the pure earth element baptize his body. The yellow rays of light gradually surrounded Halogen's robust body, and the rays of light gradually shone. Halogen clearly felt that the earth element in the air was unceasingly condensing towards him and fusing with his body. At this time, Feng Nu and the other two saw a strange scene. Under the cover of the yellow rays of light, Halogen's appearance was gradually becoming indistinguishable. The yellow rays of light were unceasingly fluctuating, and the shape was also constantly changing. Nian Bing closed her eyes, and the light between her eyebrows turned into a faint yellow. The longevity blade in her hand swallowed the light, and with a flash of light, she suddenly threw the longevity blade out. Under the influence of the yellow rays of light, the longevity blade floated and fused with Halogen's body. Under the constant movement of the earth element, a tall youth appeared in front of them. The yellow rays of light converged, and everything returned to normal. Halogen looked at his own body in astonishment. At this time, he didn't feel the slightest discomfort. He only felt that his body was full of the aura of the earth element. His tall body didn't seem to have changed at all. He still had the same control as before, but he found that his height was almost the same as Nian Bing's. Nian Bing looked at Halogen with satisfaction. Halogen's appearance hadn't changed much. Under the influence of the earth element, an earth element barrier was formed around Halogen's body, and the earth element completely fused with his body under the influence of the longevity blade. The dwarf divine armor couldn't be seen from the outside. Halogen's current appearance was like his original self had suddenly grown 2 feet taller. He looked tall and mighty, and his muscles were still as swollen as before. There wasn't the slightest bit of disharmony. Nian Bing smiled faintly and said, "It's a success. Big brother Halogen, you don't feel any discomfort, right?" Halogen constantly looked at each part of his body. He was surprised to find that not only was his body rebuilt, even the warrior's robe on the surface was condensed from the earth element. On his back, a rich earth element energy was constantly absorbing the earth element in the air, maintaining the appearance of his body as if it would never change. This is too amazing. So magic is so fun. It's a pity that I can't learn it anymore. Otherwise, I would have asked you to teach me a little. After changing his appearance, Halogen became even more excited. Now that he had transformed into a real human, he was indescribably happy. Nian Bing smiled and said, "Your current body is actually just a layer of earth element added on top of your original body. And this body is the core of the longevity blade's energy. With the longevity blade's speed of absorbing the earth element in the air, as long as you are willing, you can maintain this appearance without changing. All right, now we can enter the city. Big brother, you have to remember what I said earlier." Halogen smiled and said, "Don't worry. In terms of experience, I'm not as knowledgeable as you, but in terms of age, you're much younger than me. Naturally, I know what to do and what not to do." The 5 of them stopped flying and walked together on the official road from the hill heading towards Ice Moon City. Ice Moon City, as one of the most famous cities in the continent, had not changed much. The security at the city gate was still as strict as before. The changes that happened more than a year ago in the Ice Moon Empire seemed to have never happened. Everything was on the right track. Without any obstructions, the 5 of them entered the city. Because Feng Nu and the other two's appearances were too outstanding, Nian Bing purposely made them change into coarse clothes and put on bamboo hats to cover their beauty. Nian Bing also had some selfish motives. Just like any other ordinary man, he also hoped that the beauty of his beloved would only shine in front of him. After entering Ice Moon City, the fake Wu Ji brought the 4 of them to eat a simple meal and then went directly to the Warriors Guild. He first had to contact the Bloodline cult. With a huge intelligence network, it would be much easier to do anything. The Golden Magician's robe was very eye-catching. As soon as they arrived at the entrance of the Warriors Guild, they attracted the attention of the guards. The guards here were all from the Bloodline cult, but the low-level members did not recognize Nian Bing. 2 warriors directly stopped them. "What are you doing here?" After all, magicians rarely appeared here. Nian Bing said indifferently, "Take me to see Yin Tao." The warrior snorted and said, "You want to see our president? Who are you?" Nian Bing looked at the 2 warriors, and a strange light flashed in his eyes. The 2 warriors only felt dizzy and their minds became blurred. Although they had also been trained by the Bloodline cult and their willpower was much stronger than ordinary people, in front of Nian Bing's spiritual power, there was no way for them to struggle. "Take me to see Yin Tao." Nian Bing repeated his words again. This time, the guards only responded in a low voice and quickly led them into the Warriors Guild. As soon as they entered, a familiar scene greeted their eyes. It was still chaotic here. In a spacious hall, the warriors were all receiving various missions or coming here to submit missions. Nian Bing ignored the gazes around him and did not care that his golden magician's robe had become the center of attention in the hall. Under the guidance of the 2 warriors, the 5 of them directly walked to the back. After passing through the door, Nian Bing ordered the 2 warriors to return to their posts. He stopped, and his spiritual power spread out like ripples in water. In an instant, it covered the entire Warriors Guild. Standing in the same place, he said in silence, "Yin Tao, come out and see me." His voice was not loud. Halogen was a little curious about who Nian Bing was talking to. However, the hearts of Long Ling and the other 2 who were practicing magic trembled at the same time. Nian Bing's voice seemed to come from the depths of their souls. It shocked them. The 3 of them had all opened their Tian Yin acupoints and were much more familiar with spiritual power than before. Feeling Nian Bing's endless spiritual power, they could not help but be a little shocked. Nian Bing did not tell them what happened on the godly continent, but their strength had greatly increased, and they could clearly feel that Nian Bing was unfathomable. Yin Tao was handling some of the daily affairs of the guild. As for Nian Bing's voice, Long Ling and the other 2 could only sense it with their spiritual power. However, to Yin Tao, Nian Bing's voice was like a bolt from the blue. It shook his brain and made him dizzy. In shock, he immediately identified the source of the voice and quickly walked out of the room. When Yin Tao saw Nian Bing in a golden magician's robe, he was relieved. His eyes were filled with surprise. He walked a few steps in front of Nian Bing and knelt on one knee. He said respectfully, "Master, please forgive me for being late to greet you." Since Feng Nu and the others were present, he did not rashly call out the 2 words leader. Chapter 186. Sensing the surprised looks of Long Ling and the other 2 girls, Nian Bing said, "Stand up. Let's talk inside." Yin Tu nodded sincerely, then stood up and led Nian Bing and the other 4 girls into the meeting room. Closing the door, Yin Tu walked to Nian Bing, stood beside him with his hands hanging down, glanced at Feng Nu and the other 4 girls, and asked in a low voice, "Master, who are they?" Nian Bing smiled and said, "It's all right, they're all on the same side. Master Yin, long time no see. How is the Ice Moon Hall?" Yin Tu gave a bitter smile and said, "Master, you're finally back. During the past year, so many big things have happened on the continent. We've sent a great number of people to search for you, but we didn't get any information. How did you?" Nian Bing raised his hand and stopped Yin Tu from continuing. Everyone sat down, and Nian Bing took the main seat. He glanced at Feng Nu, Long Ling, and Lan Shun, hinting that he would explain to them later, then said to Yin Tu, "Something happened to me. I rushed back as soon as I finished dealing with it." Yin Tu said, "Master, it's great that you're back. We need you to take charge of the situation." Nian Bing nodded and said, "Tell me briefly what happened in the sect during my absence." Yin Tu said respectfully, "Not long after you disappeared, we received a call for help from the former master. Because you weren't here, the 7 elders didn't dare to make any decisions without permission. Therefore, they sent people everywhere to search for you. Our sect has eyes and ears all over the continent, but we couldn't find you. The 7 elders were afraid of delaying the important things, so they temporarily took charge of the sect affairs and decided to help Devil Lion." Nian Bing nodded and said, "So, the sect had a hand in what happened in the Qi Lu Empire as well." Yin Tu said, "Yes, the purpose of our sect was to serve the Rong family. We secretly provided all kinds of information about the Qi Lu Empire to Lord Devil Lion. Even the capital city of the Qi Lu Empire was broken into. It was the 7 elders who led the red-clothed men of sacrifice to open the city gate from the inside. That's why everything went so smoothly. Right now, most of our people are concentrated in the south." Nian Bing thought to herself, sure enough, although she wasn't here, the 7 elders would never be careless when it came to important decisions. With the comprehensive information gathered by the Bloodline cult and the surprise attack, how could the Qi Lu Empire not be defeated? Seeing that Nian Bing was deep in thought, Yin Tu continued, "Sect Master, since you've returned, why don't you leave now? In that case, I will immediately inform the elders and ask you to preside over the situation." Nian Bing said, "All right, inform the elders that I'm back first." "Oh, right. What's with the 4 states forum space? I've only heard about it. Since the Huarong Empire has organized such a meeting, they must be up to something." Indang nodded and said, "Yes, I also just got the news not long ago. The so-called 4 Nations Conference is actually very simple. It is a peace talk proposed by the Huarong Empire." Nian Bing was moved. Peace talks? Under such circumstances, the Huarong Empire is actually willing to negotiate. What good plan? However, will the Longmu Empire allow the peace talks to succeed? Now that the Qi Lu Empire has been conquered, they need time to fully control it. The Huarong Empire's territory is already about the same size as the Ottoman Empire and the Ice Moon Empire combined. It is at least 1.5 times the size of the Longmu Empire. Then, how can the other empires compete with the Huarong Empire? Yin Dang said, "The situation of the 4 Nations Conference is very delicate. According to the information I received, in the upcoming conference, the Huarong Empire and the Longmu Empire will naturally be at odds with each other. The Ottoman Empire and the Ice Moon Empire are in a more delicate position. The Huarong Empire needs time to recuperate. However, the Alan Empire needs more time to adjust. The Ice Moon Empire just had a change of emperor not too long ago. Although most of the powers are under our control, their national strength isn't that strong. Furthermore, due to the distance between them and the Huarong Empire, if I were Yin Feng, I definitely wouldn't offend the Huarong Empire so easily. I would attract a great enemy to myself." Nian Bing smiled slightly and said, "Not bad. Your analysis is very reasonable. Presumably, this should be the reason why the Huarong Empire started the peace talks. Tension and relaxation. It is indeed a good strategy. Judging from the current situation of the Ice Moon Empire, we don't even need to occupy it. The entire upper echelon of the empire is under our control." Indang nodded and said, "That's right. After what happened last time, the reserve elder Shuep is already the father-in-law of the Ice Moon Empire. He is also in charge of more than 1/3 of the empire's military power. After the elders of the Bloodline Hall discussed it, Shuep is now in the back seat. He is only in charge of the military power, but he will not easily interfere with the government. He will fully support Yin Feng and let him control the Ice Moon Empire on the surface." Nian Bing's eyes flashed. She smiled and said, "This is the best choice. Since ancient times, Powerful officials have never had a good ending. For us, the most important thing is the military power of the sorcerers. As long as we have the military power, there is no harm in letting Yin Feng manage the politics. Moreover, the Ice Moon Empire's government has already been infiltrated by our people. No matter what happens, it will be under our control. I will go and take a look at the Four Nations Conference. I can't predict the result. If I am not wrong, the Huarong Empire wants to show its strength in front of the other three nations to deter them. The Longmu Empire wants to contact the other two nations to resist the Huarong Empire together. It is time for the nations to compete with each other. Whoever can gain more benefits from this conference will be able to live more comfortably in the future. Yin Dang said, "Hierarch, what should we do?" Nian Bing thought for a while and said, "When you inform the seventh elder that I am coming back, tell them to lead the elites of our sect to wait for me in the Huarong Empire. I will be there soon. At the same time, tell the branches of our sect to not act rashly. Also, tell them to restrain their intelligence network. We must maintain the mystery of our sect, especially in the Huarong Empire." Yin Dang stared blankly and said, "Hierarch, why? Now is the best time for us to expand greatly." Nian Bing said indifferently, "Just do as I say. I have my reasons." The increase of the Huarong Empire's power was naturally a good thing for the empire. However, it might not be so for the Rong family. After all, the Rong family was a subject of the Huarong Empire. Their achievements might not cause the Emperor Hua Tian to offend them. However, in the future, the throne might change or Prince Rong might die. In that case, the Rong family might not be as glorious as it was now. It might even change. After all, the military power of the Rong family was too great. Just the two terrifying knight regiments were enough to make anyone wary. Therefore, the more mysterious the Bloodline sect was, the more help it would be to the Rong family in the future. How could Nian Bing tell Yin Dang this? Because Yin Dang was not a member of the Rong family, nor was he a core member of the Bloodline sect. Nian Bing continued, "Help me arrange a place for my friends to stay. I'm going out for a while." "All right," Nian Bing said. Yin Dang nodded. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something. Xiang Nian Bing said, "The recent actions of the All-In Empire have been very strange. According to the reports of our spies, for some reason, the All-In Empire has undergone tremendous changes in the past 2 years. This is especially so with the encouragement of the royal family. Various industries have developed greatly, and the entire country seems to be thriving. The country has issued dozens of decrees, and not a single one of them is wrong. Under the country's impoverished condition, they have greatly reduced taxes and encouraged production, although it has only been 2 years. However, the Ottoman Empire has fully recovered and is now far from what it used to be. However, they did not expand their army. The army is still under the control of Duke Bluefeather. They even gave up the defense of the barren lands in the south and retreated inland. Apart from the daily necessary training, the soldiers are engaged in other work. For example, assisting farmers in farming. It is very strange. However, the effect is surprisingly good. The whole country is adjusting and developing. Although there are not many changes on the outside, the Ottoman Empire is very different from before." Nian Bing's heart moved. For such a situation to occur, it must be related to the leadership. Only an enlightened monarch and wise ministers can make the weakest country on the continent develop in such a short time. Have there been any changes in the upper echelons of the Ottoman Empire in the past 2 years? Yin Dang nodded. Yes, and there was a very big change. Under the recommendation of Duke Bluefeather, a person called Noel became the new prime minister of the Ottoman Empire. It was because of this person's ascension that the Ottoman Empire made great progress. Noel. Nian Bing's mind spun quickly. A faint smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. "I believe that this Prime Minister Noel is not only very young, but also a woman." Yin Dang was surprised. "How did you know?" "This Prime Minister Noel reports directly to the Emperor of the Ottoman Empire in the All-In Palace. She almost never appears in front of the monarch and his ministers. The decrees are also issued by the Emperor. We used a lot of manpower to investigate that this Noel is a woman, but you..." Nian Bing looked at Long Ling with a smile. It seems that your good sister has begun to show off in the Ottoman Empire. Long Ling looked at Nian Bing in surprise. Are you saying that this Noelle is Roa? Nian Bing nodded. That's right. Other than the Lady of Wisdom, I can't think of anyone else who has the ability to make the Ottoman Empire change so much in such a short time. Yes, although the Emperor of the Ottoman Empire may not be very wise, he definitely knows how to use people. No wonder Duke Bluefeather was always placed in an important position by him. This time, with Luo Ro, one civil and one military. If they are given some time, I believe that the Ottoman Empire will achieve great things in the future. Feng Nu, you don't have to worry now. With the Lady of Wisdom in the Ottoman Empire, it won't be easy for the Huarong Empire to swallow her. Feng Nu looked at Nian Bing confusedly. She really couldn't understand when the man she loved so much had become a politician. Looking at his calm face, it seemed that he already knew the situation in front of him. Nian Bing stood up and said to Yin Dang, "You go inform the elders as I said. I need to go out for a trip." Yin Dang nodded sincerely and walked out. Nian Bing looked at Halogen and the three girls, smiled, and said, "Now I can answer your questions. Is there any problem? You can ask." Feng Nu was the first to speak. "What's with you being a leader? I've never heard you mention it before." Nian Bing smiled and said, "You will all be my wives. There's nothing to hide. Back then, do you still remember what happened when we participated in the competition in the Huarong Empire? I took over the position of the leader of the Bloodline sect at that time." Then, he briefly explained how his grandfather had passed on the Bloodline sect to him and how he had promised to protect the Rong family in the future. Hearing Nian Bing's words, Lan Chun suddenly said, No wonder you were in the palace that day when the Ice Moon Empire's royal family was in chaos. That Yin Feng could become the emperor, it must have been because of you." Nian Bing grinned and said, "Of course, even those powerful warriors who went to intercept your teacher were sent by me. If I hadn't controlled everything well, how could I have let that good brother of mine sit on the emperor's throne? In fact, the real reason I did this was because of Ling Er. Only when Yin Feng became the emperor, there would be no more obstacles between Ling Er and me. Back then, when I agreed to help my master Longji, I didn't have the slightest confidence. However, for Ling Er's sake, I had no choice but to agree. After that, when I discovered that the underground forces of the Bloodline cult were actually so large, I finally had the confidence to succeed. In fact, it was very dangerous that time. Even if your teacher had arrived earlier, our plan would have been ruined. Fortunately, we succeeded in the end. That's my secret. You know everything else. Do you have any questions?" Long Ling smiled and said, "I don't have any questions. I don't care who you are or what your subordinates are in charge of. Anyway, I won't leave you in the future." Lan Chin sighed softly and said, "Nian Bing, I was really unwilling to admit defeat when we fought for the first time, and I've always been looking for an opportunity to defeat you. So, I've been constantly training bitterly while I was looking for you. I hoped that I would be able to take revenge when I saw you again. However, every time I saw you, you were stronger than before. You not only faced me, but also so many things. I have to admit that you are much better than me." Nian Bing held Lan Chin's hand and smiled. "If I'm not as good as you, you probably won't recognize me as your husband, right? Well, don't think too much about it. I will do my best to deal with your teacher's matter. She locked my parents up for so many years, destroyed my childhood, and destroyed my family. I have to take revenge. But after all, she also raised my mother and you. As long as my parents are safe and sound, I promise you that I will spare her life." Lan Chin's eyes lit up. Ignoring the other people around, he threw himself into Nian Bing's arms and said in a trembling voice, Are you telling the truth?" Although she had decided to leave the Ice God Tower at that time, how could she forget the kindness of the Ice Goddess Priestess for raising her for so many years? The thing she was most afraid of was going to the Ice God Tower with Nian Bing one day. She wasn't afraid of facing her teacher, but she was afraid that if a conflict broke out between her beloved man and her teacher, either side would be hurt. Nian Bing obviously understood her heart. Making such a promise to her could be considered as the biggest concession he could make. After all, in Nian Bing's heart, Hatred had always been the source of his continuous efforts. The reason why he said so was entirely because of her. Thinking of this, Lan Chen's heart surged with strong emotions. She hugged Nian Bing's neck and used her ice-cold lips to kiss Nian Bing's lips. Nian Bing had been here for 2 days, but when the 3 women were with him, they were too embarrassed to be too intimate with him. They were all afraid that the other 2 women would misunderstand. Lan Chen's sudden kiss startled Nian Bing, but his surprise was soon replaced by tenderness. He hugged Lan Chen tightly and kissed her deeply on the lips. "Don't worry, I never go back on my words. Since I've already promised you, I will definitely do it." Lan Chen's eyes reddened. She lowered her head and said, "Thank you. Thank you for understanding my heart." Nian Bing hugged her elastic body tightly. Recalling the madness of that time, he couldn't help but feel warm in his heart. He smiled and said, "Well, don't think too much. You are my lover. I should do something for you. What's more, this is not a big deal." After going to the continent of gods, Nian Bing's knowledge had greatly increased. In the past, when he was in the Yangon continent, he always thought that God's descent master was the ultimate goal he pursued. But after going to the continent of gods, he discovered that his pursuit was so shallow. In the future, there were still many tests to face. Those few true gods should be the ones he should face. Lan Chen's heart gradually calmed down in Nian Bing's warm embrace. Only then did she remember her current situation. She hurriedly broke free from Nian Bing's embrace. A blush appeared on her fair face. She stole a glance at her sister, then looked at Long Ling, and Feng Nu's expression didn't change. They were both looking at her with a smile. Lan Chen's gaze just happened to meet Lan Chen's. This made Lan Chen even more embarrassed. Nian Bing laughed and said, "What are you looking at them for? Don't worry, I won't favor one and discriminate against the other. Come, my 2 wives, let's kiss." After saying that, he made threatening gestures and pounced on Feng Nu and Long Ling. The 2 women cried out in alarm and hurriedly hid behind Lan Chen. But Nian Bing's physical strength was no longer comparable to before. Feng Nu smoothly dodged, but Long Ling fell into his evil clutches. Long Ling only made a symbolic struggle before Nian Bing succeeded. Different from Lan Chen's cool lips, Long Ling's lips were extremely moist and soft. It was exceptionally comfortable to kiss. When Nian Bing went to grab Feng Nu again, Feng Nu said shyly, "Didn't you say you were going out to do something? Why haven't you gone yet? You're fooling around in front of Big Brother Halogen. What are you doing?" Halogen was originally looking at them foolishly. Hearing Feng Nu's words, he quickly turned around and muttered, "I didn't see anything. I didn't see anything." Nian Bing suddenly stepped forward like lightning and deeply kissed Feng Nu's hot lips. "Okay, I'm done kissing. You wait for me here. I'll be back in a while." After that, Feng Nu snorted and hurriedly ran out of the meeting room. Looking at Nian Bing's back, Feng Nu couldn't help but shake her head helplessly, but her heart was very sweet. She had spent the longest time with Nian Bing. She clearly found that since Nian Bing came back, his mentality had changed a lot. At least, he was no longer as dark as before and had become much more cheerful. Perhaps it was because he had regained his life and, at the same time, because he knew that his parents were safe and sound. Nian Bing left the Warriors' Union, tidied up his clothes, and slowly walked towards the palace. Before seeing Yin and I, he had guessed that the Bloodline Church had helped the Huarong Empire launch an invasion. Therefore, Yin's words didn't surprise him too much. As he walked, he thought about the current situation of the Yangon continent. No matter how the Yangon continent fought, it didn't affect Nian Bing too much. He just hoped that his family and friends wouldn't be hurt. As for who ruled the continent, it didn't matter too much. What he was thinking about the most now was the lost continent. In his mind, he often analyzed what would happen if the lost continent returned, or if the process of opening the seal was stopped. After staying with Cao for a year, the unlucky emissaries sent by the godly continent might have already come to the Yangon continent. He didn't know if they had found the whereabouts of Evil Moon. These emissaries had seen so many complicated scenes on the Yangon continent. If they went back to the godly continent and spread the news, it was very likely that the binding seal of the godly continent would be opened in the future. Although they were all humans, it was definitely not a good thing for so many strong people to come to the Yangon continent one by one. But was it something that he could stop? Nian Bing's good mood gradually disappeared as he thought about it. He felt more and more that the situation was serious. Cao and Tianxiang had both entered meditation when he left, and the other three true gods definitely wouldn't be idle either. No one could predict what would happen in the future. If he wanted to change all of this, he needed more power and influence. It seemed that he had to make some preparations on the Yangon continent. No matter how strong the gods were, they were far from being comparable to the Yangon continent in terms of numbers. When he arrived at the Huarong Empire, he should talk to his grandpa. He hoped that he could come up with a solution as soon as possible. While thinking, Nian Bing arrived at the gate of the Ice Moon Empire's palace. As soon as he arrived, he suddenly felt a cold breath invading his body. He was shocked and couldn't help but raise his head to look in the direction of the breath. He saw three magicians wearing white magic robes looking at him. These three people were also coming to the Ice Moon Empire's palace. Seeing them, Nian Bing's heart beat violently. The one in the lead wearing a thin veil was the priestess of the Ice Goddess. At this time, the priestess of the Ice Goddess was dressed the same as before, but there was an additional white bamboo hat on her head. The 3 feet long veil hung in front of her, covering her peerless beauty. The 2 people behind her were dressed the same as the priestess of the Ice Goddess, but their breath was much weaker. Although he couldn't see the priestess' appearance, with Nian Bing's spiritual power, he could see through her. In an instant, he determined that the person in front of him was his greatest enemy. Taking a deep breath, his eyes lit up and he took the initiative to greet him. The reason why the priestess of the Ice Goddess was able to discover Nian Bing first, and not Nian Bing was not because her spiritual power was stronger than Nian Bing's, but because Nian Bing was a little absent-minded when he was thinking and didn't pay attention to the movements around him. Seeing Nian Bing walking towards her, the priestess of the Ice Goddess couldn't help but be a little surprised. When Lan Shun was still Bing Yun, he once told her about Nian Bing's identity. Right now, looking at Nian Bing's somewhat familiar handsome face, she couldn't help but think of her own disciple, and also that stubborn Rongtian. From a surface, this young man, wearing a golden magic robe in front of her, was more outstanding than his father. But the strange thing was, he was clearly a magician. But why didn't she feel any magic elements around her body? What wind blew Lord Ice Goddess Priestess to Ice Moon City? Royal Court Magician Nian Bing greets you. Nian Bing's voice was very calm, although his mood was agitated. But ever since he went through countless trials, his spiritual power had already reached a whole new realm. He definitely wouldn't let his inner thoughts affect the change of his aura. The priestess of the Ice Goddess said coldly, "You're Nian Bing." "Rong Nian Bing?" Nian Bing's eyes flashed and said, "Since you already know, why do you need to ask?" The priestess of the Ice Goddess nodded. She said, "You've got guts. You actually dare to talk to me like that." Nian Bing smiled slightly and said tit for tat, "We're all humans, we all have mouths. Other than eating, aren't mouths also used to talk? Could it be that your mouth can fart?" Although separated by a thin veil, once Nian Bing's voice fell, she could immediately feel 2 exceptionally cold gazes shooting out from behind the white veil. "You think I don't dare to kill you here?" The priestess of the Ice Goddess's voice became even colder. "You dare. Of course you dare. As the only God's Descent master in the continent, is there anything you don't dare to do? However, if I remember correctly, all the supplies of the Ice God Tower seem to be provided by the Ice Moon Empire. No matter what, I'm under the orders of the Ice Moon Empire's royal family. In front of the palace, if Lord Priestess kills me, I'm afraid it won't have a good effect." The priestess of the Ice Goddess snorted coldly. She said, "Your father isn't as glib as you. At least he's still a gentleman." Hearing the priestess of the Ice Goddess mention his father, Nian Bing's eyes couldn't help but shine. He said coldly, "Gentlemen, since you think my father is a gentleman, why do you still want to harm him and my mother? You should understand that the hatred between us can't be resolved. Rest assured, I won't run away." The matter between us will be resolved one day, just not now. If you want to get back the stone of the ice goddess, it'll depend on your ability. Two rays of cold light instantly shot out from the hands of the two magicians behind the priestess of the ice goddess, aiming straight for Nian Bing's vital points on his chest. As disciples of the ice god tower, hearing Nian Bing insult the priestess of the ice goddess, they didn't have the self-restraint of the priestess of the ice goddess and immediately couldn't help but attack Nian Bing. Nian Bing smiled indifferently, not the slightest bit flustered by the opponent's attack. He didn't even move, letting those two highly condensed ice cones pierce his body. He didn't even use magic to resist. His chest shone faintly, and the two ice cones turned into ice powder. Looking at the two holes left on his golden magician's robe, Nian Bing said indifferently, "Lady Priestess, I think you should compensate me with a new robe." The priestess of the ice goddess was also very surprised. The two ice magicians who came with her to Ice Snow City this time had been her subordinates for many years, and their strength had reached the level of an ice magus. Although the ice cones were instantaneous, it wasn't something that an ordinary ice magician could do. However, Nian Bing didn't even use magic and blocked the attack with just the strength of his body. What was going on? Could it be that he also practiced martial arts at the same time? Because she couldn't sense Nian Bing's aura. In her heart, the water seal became mysterious. Nian Bing looked deeply at the priestess of the ice goddess. It wasn't that he didn't want to make a move immediately, and it wasn't that he didn't have confidence in himself. However, since he had already promised Feng Nu that he would deal with the Ottoman Empire first, now was definitely not the time to complicate matters. Moreover, the priestess of the ice goddess had always been the symbol of the Ice Moon Empire. If he rashly made a move against her, it would be difficult to explain to Yin Feng. "Why aren't you saying anything, priestess? You're in the wrong. Since we're already here, then let's go in. You should also be here to see His Majesty." After saying this, Nian Bing no longer paid any attention to the priestess of the ice goddess and turned to walk towards the palace. "Priestess, he's so arrogant. What do you think?" An ice magus beside the priestess whispered. The priestess of the ice goddess said indifferently, "Now is not the time to make a move. You must remember that as an ice archmage, you must remain calm when facing an enemy. Only in this way can you find the enemy's weak point and strike. Your magic is already very strong. Haven't your tempers been smoothed out after so many years of cultivation?" The two ice magi said in fear, "Yes, priestess." The priestess of the ice goddess walked towards the palace. "Let's go in as well." With the gold medal that Yin Feng had given her, Nian Bing didn't encounter any resistance and directly entered the palace. At this time, Yin Feng was currently in court. He had come to the Ice Moon Empire's Ice Goddess Palace and ordered a messenger to report inside. Yin Feng was currently in court with the ministers of the Ice Moon Empire to discuss the matter of the Four Kingdoms Conference. Ever since he received the invitation from the Huarong Empire, he had been in a difficult situation. He had been the emperor for a while now and had gradually adapted to his current life. His own talents were gradually showing, and he sat firmly on the throne. However, this matter was truly too troublesome. He didn't want to offend the Huarong Empire, but at the same time, he didn't want to offend the Longmu Empire. Right now, the envoys of both empires were in Ice Moon City. Chapter 187. The emissary from the Huarong Empire had come to invite him to the conference, while the emissary from the Longmu Empire had come to ask for cooperation. He didn't know what to do. His decision represented the attitude of the Ice Moon Empire, so he couldn't be careless. He had already discussed with the officials for 3 days, but he still hadn't come to a conclusion. It was almost time for the conference to begin. If he didn't leave now, he wouldn't be able to make it in time. As a result, he was very anxious and hadn't slept well for a few days. "Your Majesty, the Ice Goddess Priestess has arrived. The chief court magician Nian Bing has arrived." The Ice Goddess Priestess had a high status. No matter what, her name was always at the front, even when Yin Feng's name was mentioned. Yin Feng suddenly stood up from the throne, his eyes filled with surprise. He wasn't surprised by the arrival of the Ice Goddess Priestess because he had sent someone to invite her from the Ice God Tower. The Four Nations Conference was so important that he had to ask for the Ice Goddess Priestess' opinion. Moreover, the most ideal emissary in his heart was the Ice Goddess Priestess. With the number one godly emissary in the continent, the Ice Moon Empire would naturally be able to obtain the most benefits. However, when he heard that Nian Bing had also come, he was immediately filled with excitement. Although Marshal Shuepa had contributed greatly to his ascension to the throne, in his heart, he trusted Nian Bing the most. Without Nian Bing's perfect strategy, he wouldn't have been able to succeed. He treated Nian Bing as a brother. Now that Nian Bing had arrived at such a crucial time, he had one more person to discuss with. How could he not be happy? Quickly invite her in. Oh no, I will personally welcome her. As he spoke, he lifted the hem of his dragon robe and walked down the stairs. The officials parted to the sides. Shuepa, who was also pleasantly surprised, followed behind Yin Feng. The doors to the Ice God Hall opened. At this moment, the Ice Goddess Priestess and Nian Bing were standing at the entrance. The Ice Goddess Priestess had already taken off her bamboo hat, revealing her peerlessly beautiful appearance. Seeing that the first person to walk out of the door was actually the current king of the Ice Moon Empire, Yin Feng, the priestess of the Ice Goddess couldn't help but be shocked. The cold light in her eyes softened a little. He frowned and said, "Why did His Majesty come out personally?" Yin Feng smiled and said, "It is the fortune of the Ice Moon Empire that the Ice Goddess Priestess arrived in time. How can I not come to welcome you personally? Lord Priest, please come in." As he spoke, he stepped aside. He made a gesture of invitation. Nian Bing praised him in her heart. Yin Feng looked more mature than before. It was not easy for him to do this with his current status. The priestess of the Ice Goddess was proud to begin with. Being praised like this would make her feel much better. The priestess of the Snow Goddess wasn't lucky either. She entered with her two subordinates. Nian Bing followed behind them all the way into the hall. At this time, Yin Feng finally had the chance to look at Nian Bing. The excitement in his eyes could not be concealed. Nian Bing gave him a look and then walked side by side with the priestess of the Ice Goddess. Yin Feng ordered people to bring 2 chairs over. He placed them on both sides of his dragon throne and said, "Lord Priest of the Ice Goddess, please sit. Nian Bing, you also sit." Wait a moment. The priestess of the Ice Goddess's gaze turned cold again. Her gaze fell on Yin Bing, and she said coldly, "What right does he have to sit here?" Yin Feng frowned and said, "Nian Bing is our country's chief court magician. She is a guest. Naturally, she can sit here." The priestess of the Ice Goddess snorted and said, "I'm afraid that his identity is fake. If he can sit here with his strength, then my subordinates can also sit here. If you want to sit in this hall, you need to rely on your strength to speak." Nian Bing did not get angry. She smiled and said, "Oh, then how do you think I can sit here, Lord Priest of the Ice Goddess?" The priestess of the Ice Goddess said, "Strength is the basis for speaking." Nian Bing found it funny and said, "Could it be that you want to fight in the hall?" The priestess of the Ice Goddess said disdainfully, "You are not qualified to fight with me. If you can win against either of my subordinates, then you have the right to sit here." Nian Bing smiled faintly and said, "That's not a difficult task." Yin Feng looked at Nian Bing and then at the priestess of the Ice Goddess. He said sincerely, "Both of you are the pillars of our country. You must not fight." What a joke. If Nian Bing and the other advanced magicians were to fight, just their destructive power alone would be enough to turn this place into ruins. Nian Bing looked at Yin Feng and said, "Your Majesty, I came from afar and am a bit tired. Naturally, I want to sit. Since the priestess of the Ice Goddess questions my identity, then I will prove it to her. Your Majesty, please rest assured that I will not destroy anything here. Otherwise, I will voluntarily resign from my current position." Yin Feng was very anxious. "Nian Bing, do not be rude. After all, the priestess of the Ice Goddess had been accumulating power for a long time. He was afraid that Nian Bing would be taken advantage of." Nian Bing looked at the priestess and said, "Priestess, let your subordinates prepare. I'm going to start." The priestess of the Ice Goddess was only provoking Nian Bing verbally. She did not expect that he would actually dare to fight here. She couldn't help but be stunned. At this moment, it happened. Red and blue light lit up at almost the same time. The entire hall was suddenly filled with a sharp aura. Two rays of light that were polar opposites of ice and heat instantly shot out from Yin Bing's body, drawing an arc in the air and circling around the priestesses of the ice goddess, arriving in front of the two ice archmages like lightning. The two magicians reacted quickly and instantly cast ice shields to block the light. They were both magicians. They naturally thought that this sudden attack would not have any effect, so they did not put Yin Bing in their eyes. However, they were wrong. Yin Bing could no longer be compared to a normal magician. The red and blue lights instantly enlarged. Two tall and slender figures appeared in the air. The dark red righteous yang saber flickered with blue true fire, breaking the ice shield in almost an instant. On the other side, the blue morning dew saber broke through the ice shield. They easily turned the other archmage's ice shield into ice powder and locked onto them in an instant. The two archmages' hands had just touched the magic scrolls they were carrying when they were sealed by the ice and fire puppets. It wasn't that they couldn't move, but as archmages, they knew very well that they couldn't move. As long as they moved slightly, the magic locked onto them would instantly explode and tear them to pieces. Feeling the heat of the righteous yang saber and the coldness of the morning dew saber, the two ice magicians' expressions changed. The sudden change caused a commotion in the ice goddess hall. No one saw clearly what had just happened. The two subordinates of the priestess of the ice goddess had already been restrained. The priestess of the ice goddess felt her heart turn cold. She was very close to Yin Bing. She also felt it the most. Even she didn't have the confidence to completely block that sharp energy. Only by running away could she avoid that instantaneous attack. Yin Bing still stood there with a smile on her face, as if she hadn't done anything. However, the lives of the two magicians were already in her hands. The priestess of the ice goddess couldn't help but re-evaluate the strength of the young man in front of her. The light receded. The two puppets took the two blades and merged into Yin Bing's body, disappearing. I think, now I have a right to sit here. Priestess, I just want to tell you that I didn't get this position by relying on connections. As she said that, Yin Bing sat in her seat grandly, no longer looking at the priestess of the ice goddess. The priestess of the ice goddess didn't change. She also sat down. The two subordinates behind her wanted to attack, but she raised her hand to stop them. Seeing this, Yin Feng hurriedly said, "The two of you are my guests. There's no need to argue over such a small matter. All right, let's continue to discuss business. Priestess, the Four Nations Conference is about to begin. I've already made it clear in my letter to you. What do you think our country should do? The Huarong Empire is too powerful. If we don't adapt well, it will be very detrimental to our country's future development." The priestess of the ice goddess said indifferently, "I don't understand politics. Your Majesty doesn't need to ask me." Yin Feng hit a nail, but he didn't express any dissatisfaction. He continued, "Currently, our country is outside the war zone. For the time being, we don't have to worry about war. However, the Longmu Empire borders our country. Because our country is located in the north, the climate is cold. Most of our food comes from the Longmu Empire. Now that they've sent people to ask for an alliance, if we don't agree, I'm afraid it won't be appropriate. However, if we join forces with the Huarong Empire, it will be a long journey. Moreover, the Huarong Empire is too powerful and doesn't border our country. No matter if we win or lose, the benefits to us will be very small. That's why I'm in a dilemma with the other ministers. I want to hear your opinion." The priestess of the ice goddess glanced at Yin Feng. She saw that Yin Feng's eyes were full of sincerity. She said slowly, "There's nothing wrong with forming an alliance. The Longmu Empire is the granary of the Ice Moon Empire. As for sending troops, I don't think it's necessary. The Huarong Empire isn't that easy to deal with. Of course, we have to go to the Four Nations Conference. Your Majesty, you can decide the specific situation yourself. If there's a need for the Ice God Tower, I will naturally help you." The last four words, "help," made Yin Feng furious. Her face stiffened. She thought to herself, the Ice Moon Empire has given Ice God Tower a lot of support in the past. The Ice God Tower has also been helping the Ice Moon Empire. Now that there's a problem, You want to help me? But now is the time to use her, so she couldn't lose her temper. Thinking of this, Yin Feng said, Priestess, to participate in the Four Nations Conference, we need a prestigious and powerful emissary to represent us. After thinking about it, I think it's better for the priestess to go personally. What do you think? The priestess of the ice goddess raised her hand to stop Yin Feng from continuing. She shook her head and said, No, I won't go to the Huarong Empire. Maybe your majesty doesn't know, but our ice god tower and the Huarong Empire have always been enemies. If I go, not only will I not be of help to the empire, it might even be counterproductive. What's more, the Ice Moon Empire's Magician Union is developing rapidly. It's better for them to send experts to assist your majesty's emissary. Yin Feng immediately understood. Although most of what the priestess of the ice goddess said was true, she wasn't afraid of the Rong family. Part of the reason why she didn't want to contribute to the empire was that the rise of the Magician Union would affect the status of the Ice God Tower. It seemed that it was time for him to declare his position. Although the Magician Union had been developing rapidly in the past 2 years, it wasn't that far behind the Ice God Tower. There were still many places that relied on the Ice God Tower. After weighing the pros and cons, Yin Feng was about to speak when Yin Bing, who was sitting on the other side of him, spoke. Your Majesty, I agree with the Ice Goddess Priestess. It's indeed inappropriate for the Ice God Tower to appear in the Huarong Empire to participate in the Four Nations Conference. Since the Ice Goddess Priestess has also agreed to let the Magician Union assist the emissary to participate in this conference, as the Vice President of the Magician Union, I request your Majesty's permission. Yin Feng looked at Nianbing in surprise. Nianbing nodded firmly at him. If Yin Feng was still hesitant before, he had already made up his mind when he saw Nianbing's eyes. Nianbing was the person he trusted the most. Without Nianbing, he wouldn't have the throne. What else was there to doubt? All right, since the Ice Goddess Priestess and Nianbing both agree, then this matter is settled. However, the emissary selection is very important. Which one of you is willing to go? The audience was silent. This responsibility was too heavy. No one knew the current situation of the Huarong Empire. No one knew what changes would happen. Each of the ministers was more cunning than the other. Who would be willing to take on such a strenuous and unrewarding task? Looking at the silence of the ministers, Yin Feng couldn't help but be slightly angry. What? No one is willing to share the burden for me. Your Majesty, let me go. Nianbing stood up from her seat. You? Yin Feng looked at Nianbing with some doubt. It wasn't that he didn't believe in Nianbing's ability. Back then, Nianbing had helped him plan a plan to ascend the throne. If it wasn't for Nianbing's insistence, Yin Feng would definitely let her sit on the throne. However, the danger of this four-nation conference was too high. He really didn't want Nianbing to take the risk. Nianbing said, I am willing to share the burden for your Majesty. No. The Ice Goddess Priestess's cold voice sounded. Magician Nianbing definitely cannot take on this task. Not to mention whether or not she has the ability in politics. Her identity alone cannot represent the Huarong Empire as an emissary. Yin Feng was stunned. Identity? What identity does Nianbing have? He was actually asking the obvious. Back then, Nianbing had already told him that she was from the Rong family. Of course, Nianbing only told him that she was from the Rong family. At the same time, she also told him that she had already left the Rong family because of her father. The Ice Goddess Priestess said indifferently, her name should be Nianbing Rong. As soon as she said that, the ministers below the stage were in an uproar. Many people looked at Nianbing in a different light. Nianbing smiled and didn't panic at all. That's right, I am indeed from the Rong family. Prince Rong is my grandfather. However, I don't use the surname Rong anymore. Ever since my father betrayed the Rong family and was killed by you, the Ice Goddess Priestess, I have been an orphan. I grew up in the Ice Moon Empire. I only know how to be loyal to my homeland. Below the stage, Snow Soul walked out and said respectfully, Your Majesty, I believe that Magician Nianbing is capable of taking on this responsibility. I believe in his character. I have also heard of Nianbing's identity as a magician. He has indeed left the Rong family long ago. As he said that, he raised his hand and touched the silver embroidery on his collar. As soon as Snow Soul finished speaking, dozens of ministers stood out and said respectfully at the same time, "We also believe that magician Yin Bing is capable of taking on this responsibility." Their voices were so synchronized that even Yin Feng was startled. He didn't know that these ministers who occupied important positions were all members of the Bloodlion cult. What Snow Soul did just now was the Bloodlion cult's secret signal. Most of these Bloodlion cult members didn't know Yin Bing's identity, but when the secret signal appeared, they immediately agreed with Snow Soul's suggestion. Those who could stand out and speak were all important people in the Ice Moon Empire. Those ministers who felt that something was wrong couldn't speak rashly anymore. On the stage, the priestess of the snow goddess showed surprise for the first time. She glanced at the calm Yin Bing and said coldly, "Your Majesty, since so many people support Yin Bing, you can send him as the emissary. However, our Ice God Tower has been blessed by the Empire for many years. Now that the Empire is in trouble, we can't just ignore it. I will go with magician Yin Bing." Hearing the priestess's words, Marshal Snow Soul's expression changed. He raised his head and looked at Yin Bing. Yin Bing was still smiling. She said, "That's good. If you can change your mind and agree to go with me, I will definitely teach Yin Bing a lot. With your deterrence, I think our country will be able to get the best benefits." The priestess of the snow goddess had no choice but to change her mind. Although she didn't care about worldly possessions, the Ice God Tower was built by her. The Ice God Tower had never been involved in any business, and because it needed the magic stones of a master, the cost was shocking. The north was the most suitable place for ice mages to practice, without the support of the royal family. Without the support of the royal family, it would have a great impact on the Ice God Tower. To get the support of the royal family, one must have enough status. Now that the Magicians' Union was rising, the priestess of the snow goddess had come in person. She had already thought of doing something for the Ice Moon Empire to prove that she was the guardian of the Ice Moon Empire. She didn't expect that Yin Bing would agree to be the emissary, which put her at a disadvantage. She had no choice but to ask to go with them. Although Yin Feng felt that it was a little inappropriate, Yin Bing and the priestess of the snow goddess had already made up their minds. He couldn't change it. At that moment, he appointed Yin Bing as the emissary. The priestess of the snow goddess would go with him, and the two of them would choose their own entourage. They would leave tomorrow. After that, they discussed some more details in the palace before announcing the end of the court session. After the court session ended, Yin Feng directly brought Yin Bing and Marshal Snow Soul back to his own palace. After the servants left, Yin Feng grabbed Yin Bing's shoulder. "Brat, where have you been all these days? Why couldn't I find you? I was so worried." Yin Bing smiled when he saw the sincerity in Yin Feng's eyes. He said, "Am I not back to help you now?" Yin Feng lightly punched Yin Bing's shoulder and said, "Brat, you're too impulsive. Why are you fighting with that old woman? Just let her go. Why do you have to get involved in this mess?" Yin Bing smiled and said, "No matter what, I'm still your chief court mage. I have to do something for you. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing." Snow Soul said, "But this time, the priestess of the snow goddess is going with you. She's also your enemy." "I'm afraid," Yin Bing shook his head and said, "I know what's more important. I'm now the envoy representing the Empire. She won't do anything to me. When it's time to settle the score, I'll settle it with her." Yin Feng said, "Yin Bing, what do you think we should do now?" Yin Bing said, "We must form an alliance with the Ottoman Empire and the Longmu Empire. This is necessary, but we don't need to use force against the Huarong Empire. As long as we control this well, it will be beneficial to our country. Your Majesty, what you need to do now is to develop our country. Only by becoming stronger can we better control our fate." Yin Feng nodded and smiled. "You're suitable to be the envoy. You're one of the people I trust." A strange look flashed across Snow Soul's eyes. Yin Bing pretended not to see it and continued, "All right, since your Majesty trusts me, let me handle this matter. I'm confident." Yin Feng smiled. "Of course I trust you. You won't harm me. You've already proven this when you helped me ascend the throne. All right, since you're finally back, you must stay for lunch. This trip to Huarong Empire is dangerous. I'll send some experts to go with you." Yin Bing shook his head and said, That won't be necessary. With me and the priestess of the snow goddess, who dares to offend us? Although I hate her, I have to admit that there aren't many people in the Yangon continent who could defeat her. As for the meal, I want to try the dishes of the palace's chefs. Yanfeng laughed and said, I want to try your dishes, but you're finally back. You must be tired. Let's just eat something today. In front of Nianbing, he didn't put on the airs of an emperor. Nianbing stayed in the palace until the afternoon before leaving with Snow Soul. Hierarch, how can you be the envoy? Snow Soul whispered to Nianbing as they walked. Nianbing smiled faintly and said, Why? Why can't I be the envoy? Our goal is to help the Rong family, not the Huarong Empire. Elder Snow, don't forget this. Snow Soul trembled. Hierarch, what do you mean? Nianbing said, From now on, you'll be one of the elders of our sect. There are some things I don't need to hide from you. First of all, the Rong family is at the peak of its power in the Huarong Empire because of the annexation of the Qilu Empire. However, if the Huarong Empire really annexes the 4 empires and unifies the entire continent, it won't benefit the Rong family at all. I have a different view from Grandfather on this point. Grandfather's wish is to unify the continent. However, once the continent is unified, I'm afraid the Rong family will walk towards destruction. Snow Soul's eyes flashed as she said, Hierarch, you mean to cook the hound after the cunning rabbit is dead? Nianbing said coldly, When the birds are gone, the bow is put away. When the cunning rabbit is dead, the hound is cooked. This has always been an unquestionable principle. The Rong family's achievements shake the ruler. Once the Huarong Empire changes rulers, the Rong family will be destroyed in less than 3 generations. The Rong family will be destroyed. However, the Rong family has many experts. If the Rong family is not unified, the Huarong Empire will definitely try to win over the Rong family in order to use the Rong family's power. The Rong family's status will be very difficult to change. Not to mention, for our bloodline sect, do you think it's better to unify the continent or secretly control the other empires? After the continent is unified, although the underground forces can still survive, as long as the ruler of the Huarong Empire is not a fool, they will definitely find a way to control the underground forces. Although our bloodline sect is mysterious, I believe that the Huarong Empire already has some records on us. Therefore, the direction we should develop in the future is not to help the Huarong Empire unify the continent, but to control the Ottoman Empire and the Longmu Empire after the Ice Moon Empire. That is the right thing to do. Only when our people are completely innocent can we have better development in the future. Snow Soul listened to Nianbing's explanation. Snow Soul nodded repeatedly. Hierarch, you have great foresight. After your analysis, this subordinate immediately understand a lot. Nianbing sighed softly and said, Actually, I am not very suitable to be the hierarch because I am too emotional. This is my biggest flaw. However, if a person has no emotions, then he is not fit to be called a person. Elder Snow, to be honest, Yanfeng has always treated me as his best brother. I have always felt guilty towards him for using him to control the Ice Moon Empire. Therefore, I want to help him. Moreover, your daughter is his wife. Whether it is for Yanfeng or for her, we cannot let the Ice Moon Empire perish. Therefore, I came to the Imperial Court today to be the emissary of the Ice Moon Empire. I want to help Yanfeng in a hurry. I hope you can understand my painstaking efforts. Although our people are scattered all over the continent, most of them have already taken root. If there is a huge change, it will involve too many people. Don't tell me you want our high-ranking subordinates in the Central Plains to give up everything they have. If we want to develop better, we must consider the future of our subordinates. Only then can our cult live in the darkness forever and control everything in the continent. Snow Soul took a deep look at Nianbing and said, Sect Master. Nianbing smiled faintly and said, That's what I think. Since I've become the leader, I have to think for my brothers in the cult. It's time for the Bloodline cult to change its policy. When we reach the Huarong Empire, I will naturally have a good talk with the 7 elders. Although we exist for the Rong family, if we want to help the Rong family better, we must change. Snow Soul nodded respectfully and said, I understand. Now, I truly believe that the demonic lion cult leader has good foresight. You are indeed more suitable to be the hierarch. Nian Bing parted ways with Snow Soul on the way, and returned to the Warriors' Union alone. What? Lan Xin stared at Nian Bing with wide eyes. You said that Master wants to travel with us. How can this be? After listening to Nian Bing's explanation, Lan Xin's heart was in a mess. She really did not want to face her master. Nian Bing smiled. This is nothing. I have already thought about it for you. You don't necessarily have to face your master. You people from the Ice God Tower take carriages when you go out, so we will also take carriages. Now that you have the Heaven's Eye acupoint, it should be no problem for you to hide your aura. Your master will not be able to detect it. Moreover, did you not see Big Brother Halogen's appearance? I have a way to change his appearance, so naturally, I can do the same for you. Do you want to give it a try? But Lan Xin was still somewhat hesitant. Nian Bing smiled. Don't worry, Chun, I know what to do. This time, I have many things to do in the Huarong Empire. If I remember correctly, the Phoenix Clan ceremony is about to begin. After I'm done with the Four Nations Conference, I'll go with you to the Phoenix Clan. Although Mother has already left the Feng people, I understand her heart. Feng Nu's beautiful eyes flickered with light, and she took the initiative to hold Nian Bing's hand. You are still the most thoughtful. Chun, don't worry. Even if your master travels with us, she won't be able to do anything. With our combined strength, she won't be able to do anything to you. Lan Xin lowered his head and said, Master raised me since I was young. Although she's also strict with me, she's really good to me. For Nian Bing, I left the Ice God Tower, but I really don't want to go against Master. I don't even know how to face her. Nian Bing hugged Lan Xin and said, This is also something that can't be helped. I also didn't expect that she would take the initiative to go with us to the Huarong Empire. Don't worry, what the eye doesn't see, the heart doesn't grieve over. If you really can't do it, just wait here for us to come back. Lan Xin shook his head and said, No, I've already waited for you for 1.5 years. Don't tell me you still want me to wait. We'll do as you say. However, you have to help me change my appearance so that I look prettier. I don't want to be ugly. Nian Bing laughed and said, My Chun is so pretty. Why would I change your appearance to be ugly? You are of the ice attribute, so use my Sai, the ice goddess. It suits you best. With its aura temporarily fusing with you, it will also be very beneficial for your strength to increase. Lan Xin said, Do you really have to use your blade? That's your best weapon. If you give it to me, what will you use? If Master makes a move on you, I'm afraid you won't be able to resist. Nian Bing smiled and said, Relax, it's fine. I can take back my blade at any time. Moreover, with Big Brother Halogen here, your master won't have the chance to hurt me. As an envoy, she will at most make a move to test me, but won't really kill me. Moreover, I'm not necessarily afraid of her. Chapter 188. The next morning, after making arrangements for the Bloodline sect, Nian Bing brought along the official documents and tokens that Yin Feng had given her. A total of 2 carriages set off for the Huarong Empire. The 2 luxurious carriages carried Nian Bing's group of 5, as well as the priestess of the Ice Goddess and her 2 subordinates. The carriages were the Ice Moon Empire's best equipment. Each carriage was pulled by 4 strong, high-grade warhorses, and moved forward at an extremely fast speed. There was not much time left before the start of the Four Nations Assembly, so they had to travel at full speed. As for the emissary from the Longmu Empire, under Nian Bing's suggestion, Yin Feng had already agreed to form an alliance with the Longmu Empire. The carriages sped along the official road. Nian Bing used her spiritual power to place a layer of seal on the carriage that she was sitting in. Unless it was a super expert like the God of Life, Cao, no one would be able to detect the situation on the carriage. He was very comfortable now, hugging 3 beauties in each arm. He was indescribably happy. Halogen was indeed dull. Beauties were not very attractive to him. He just sat in the corner of the carriage and closed his eyes to cultivate. When he was awake, he would look at the scenery outside. He did not disturb Nian Bing and the others. After coming to the Yangon continent, Halogen was really infatuated with the scenery here. He was very interested in everything around him. With Nian Bing's guidance, he had gradually become familiar with this continent. Bing, Is Master really unable to detect us? Lanshan looked at Nian Bing with some worry. Nian Bing smiled and said, "Of course not. Don't you believe in my spiritual power? Speaking of which, if the four of us go to the godly continent, it will probably cause a commotion. There are 4 people who have opened their Tian Yin acupoints. You have to remember, the growth of spiritual power is almost limitless. Although the potential of the human body is very good, there is still a limit. If you want to improve your strength, you can't stop cultivating your spiritual power." Towards his woman, Yi Zichen said. He didn't hold back at all. He had already told them the process of how he cultivated his spiritual power on the first night in the Dragon Cave. The carriage continued to move forward. The Ice Moon Empire was extremely far from the Huarong Empire. According to Nian Bing's estimation, even though the carriage wasn't slow, it would still take at least 10 days to reach the Huarong Empire. In the past 10 days, he didn't want to cultivate. It wasn't easy for him to come back, so he wanted to do more. It was to be with the woman he loved. However, there was something that made him a little depressed. There were 3 stunning beauties by his side, but they were all very shy. They were not willing to let Nian Bing be too intimate with them. This made Nian Bing, who was already enlightened, unable to bear it. But out of respect for the 3 women, he could only endure it. Long Ling leaned on Nian Bing's right shoulder, while Feng Nu sat beside him, holding his hand. Lanshan was much less shy than the other 2 women because she had already done it with Nian Bing. She was resting on Nian Bing's thigh. Although the road wasn't very smooth, the quality of this luxurious carriage was indeed excellent. It filtered out most of the bumps. It was warm and comfortable. The food prepared in the hidden compartment was enough for them to eat for more than 10 days. The first day after leaving the Ice Moon Empire ended in a rush. When night fell, Nian Bing ordered the carriage to stop and rest by the side of the road. Because of the urgency of time, Nian Bing decided not to stay in any city when they set off. They would rest wherever the carriage arrived. The carriage was enough to accommodate the underground anyway. Jumping down from the carriage and stretching his body, Nian Bing looked at the carriage behind them. He saw that the Ice Goddess Priestess had also walked down from the carriage and was looking at him. Nian Bing smiled and said, "Priestess, after sitting in the carriage for a day, are you used to it?" These years of experience had already made him a lot more tactful. The hatred in his heart had faded a little because his parents were still alive. He was more comfortable in dealing with any situation than before. The Ice Goddess Priestess said indifferently, "There's nothing to be used to. I like a boring life. Nian Bing, come with me." After saying that, he turned and walked towards the direction of the forest. Feng Nu and the others also got down from the carriage. Under the effect of the morning dew dagger, Lan Chen's appearance had undergone a great change. Nian Bing turned her into a look similar to wisdom girl Luo Ro. Although it couldn't compare to her original appearance, it was enough to satisfy her. As soon as they got down from the carriage, they heard the words of the Ice Goddess Priestess. Their faces couldn't help but change at the same time. Lan Chen anxiously said, "Ice, don't go." Nian Bing shook his hand and said, "It's okay. You wait for me here. Believe me, it's okay." Halogen said, "Brother, how about I go with you? That woman has a dangerous aura." He was very sensitive to strength. Feng Nu and the others didn't know Halogen's strength, so they all asked to go with Nian Bing. Nian Bing smiled and said, "I said, she won't do anything to me, and I'm not afraid of her. You all wait for me here. No one needs to go. How about this? If you are worried, I'll take back the 2 daggers first. With 7 super divine tools in hand, it's hard to die even if you want to." After saying that, he shrugged his shoulders and made a funny action, which eased the tense atmosphere a little. The Ice Goddess Priestess walked a full 100 feet into the forest before stopping. No, it should be said that she was floating instead of walking. Her white magic robe set off her cold face, making her look like an ice fairy. If Nian Bing wasn't aware of her age, he might have been tempted by her beauty. After all, apart from Cao and Tian Xiang, that kind of perfect beauty, the Ice Goddess Priestess's appearance was one of the most beautiful he had ever seen. Bing Yin was somewhat similar to her, but she didn't have the holy aura on her body. "Lord Priestess, I wonder why you call me here?" Nian Bing asked with a smile. The ice goddess priestess coldly looked at Nian Bing and said, "You are not like your father." The smile on Nian Bing's face disappeared. When he heard her mention his father, the anger in his heart suddenly rose. He said indifferently, "Yes, I'm not like my father. However, don't you think that this is all caused by you?" The ice goddess priestess looked at Nian Bing and said, "Although you are not like him, you are more outstanding than him. With the genes of ice spirit and Tian Tian, I have to admit that you are an outstanding talent. It's a pity that you are their child." Nian Bing said coldly, "Yes, I am their child, ice goddess priestess. What do you want to do? You can start now." The ice goddess priestess's eyes flashed coldly. "Aren't you afraid that I will kill you?" Nian Bing said, "I am very afraid of death. Perhaps I wasn't afraid before, but now I'm really afraid, because I have a confidant, and I have a great enmity yet to be avenged. How can I die? However, do you really think that you can kill me?" The ice goddess priestess looked deeply at Nian Bing and said, "Do you think that you can contend against me just because you have opened the Tian Yin acupoint?" Nian Bing said indifferently, "Of course not. The Tian Yin acupoint can be said to be the growth acupoint. It can also be said to be the support acupoint of the 7 major acupoints. Compared to your already opened Huangji acupoint, to some extent, the support acupoint can't be compared to the strongest attack. However, I can be sure that you can't kill me." The ice goddess priestess said indifferently, "Your confidence should come from your blades. Since you think so, then let's give it a try." A cold aura floated out, and a faint cold air rose around her body. The cold air had a form. Although a faint blue light was not conspicuous in the dark night, it really existed. A golden light gradually appeared in her palm. She looked coldly at Nian Bing and raised her hand. Nian Bing smiled faintly and said, "Although your Huangji acupoint is powerful, you haven't practiced it to perfection. At most, it can only be used to instantly cast an 11th step forbidden spell. However, these are useless against me." Although he looked relaxed, facing the number 1 magician of the continent, he didn't dare to be the slightest bit careless. 7-colored light flashed, and 7 divine blades floated out from his body, floating around him. Not a single magical aura was mixed and was exceptionally clear as they were emitted from the blades. A cold light flashed in the ice goddess priestess's eyes, and the cold air around her suddenly rolled up. In an instant, everything within a radius of 10 zhang was completely frozen, and an ice spear directly shot towards Nian Bing's chest. Nian Bing calmly looked at the ice goddess priestess, and the Tian Yi acupoint between his eyebrows lit up. Instead of retreating, he advanced. The 7 divine blades flashed at a speed hard to see with the naked eye, and that ice spear had already turned into the original ice element. Nian Bing didn't launch an attack and still looked at the ice goddess priestess in silence. In fact, he was also very conflicted. He really wanted to use all of his strength to fight to the death with the ice goddess priestess, but he knew that he couldn't do so. For Lan Shun, and for his parents, now was not the time to fight the ice goddess priestess. A black shadow slowly appeared behind Nian Bing, and the 3 zhang tall silhouette gradually became clear. The space between Nian Bing's eyebrows completely turned black, and the 7-colored light dimmed at the same time. 7 shadow puppets floated out, and under the leadership of Emperor Kurobutsu, they each held their respective divine blades and scattered to the sides. The huge black shadow behind Nian Bing slowly raised the 5 zhang long black sickle in its hand, and the aura of death surged out, shrouding everything in the surroundings in an instant. Those frozen trees instantly withered under the aura of death, and their life aura was completely absorbed by this death god that suddenly appeared. The ice goddess priestess's expression changed greatly, and the golden light on her right hand suddenly became stronger. A loud dragon cry sounded, and the aura of ice immediately turned everything in the surroundings except for Nian Bing into fragments. The forbidden ice spell, Ice Goddess Dragon, was instantly released and soared behind the ice goddess priestess, confronting the death god summoned by Nian Bing. "Impossible! How can you also release a forbidden spell in an instant? The ice goddess priestess's voice was no longer as cold as before. Nian Bing smiled indifferently and said, I just want to tell you that if you can do it, I can do it too. This time, we are representing the Ice Moon Empire to the Huarong Empire, and this is not the time for conflict. At another time, I will definitely pay a visit to the Ice God Tower in person. The battle between us is unavoidable. The ice goddess priestess's gaze became cold again, and she looked at the huge shadow behind Nian Bing. You think you can contend against me like this? Nian Bing smiled indifferently and said, Yes, you who have a Huangji acupoint has almost reached the 13th level of strength. Even another divinity descent master would be no match for you. However, I can tell you a secret, and it can be considered as a fair fight between us in the future. Look carefully, great ice goddess priestess. Her voice was filled with indescribable ridicule. However, the celestial eye acupoint between his eyebrows suddenly changed. Blue, red, yellow, green, silver, white, and black. The 7 colors instantly converged into one and shot out from the celestial eye acupoint, forming a protective barrier around Nian Bing's body. Immediately afterwards, the 7 colors of his celestial eye acupoint suddenly changed, and this third eye unexpectedly turned golden. An enormous pressure gushed out from Nian Bing's body, and in an instant his body seemed to have become much taller, and an incomparably domineering aura floated out. Nian Bing raised his head to look at the ice goddess dragon in the sky. That huge dragon condensed from an 11th step forbidden spell actually trembled, and its size rapidly shrank. Within a radius of 300 meters, all the plants trembled under this enormous pressure. The trembling of the branches and leaves brought about a swaying shadow under the moonlight. Regardless of whether it was the deathly aura of the Grim Reaper behind Nian Bing or the ice-cold aura of the ice goddess dragon, they were completely suppressed at this moment. Although that faint golden light wasn't shining, it indeed seemed to bring about an unlimited amount of power. Looking at the ice goddess priestess who was overwhelmed with shock, Nian Bing said indifferently, Nothing in this world is impossible. Don't tell me you're the only one who has the Huangji acupoint? That's right. After Nian Bing's mental strength underwent a mutation, he had opened a new acupoint. That's right, he discovered in astonishment that he had opened another acupoint, and that was the Huangji acupoint, which was known as the strongest attack. And the location of this Huangji acupoint was actually inside the celestial eye acupoint. It was precisely for this reason that he had stayed in Cao's life domain for half a year. This was also his greatest gain after his resurrection. Even for Cao and Tian Xiang, this was the first time they had seen such a situation. They also didn't know how Nian Bing would develop in the future. What would happen when the Huangji acupoint and Heaven's Eye overlapped? Would they support each other or interfere with each other? For half a year, Nian Bing could only barely use this ability. However, he discovered that he could no longer directly use his mental strength to carry out physical attacks. Therefore, the opening of this Huangji acupoint not only didn't bring about a qualitative leap in his strength, but also brought him a lot of trouble. Right now, the real purpose of him using the Huangji acupoint was laughable. It was just to scare the ice goddess priestess in front of him. His strongest strength was still those 7 shadow puppets that had gained souls under the leadership of Emperor Kurobutsu. The ice goddess clearly felt that her clothes were already a little damp. In 50 years, this was the first time she had sweated, and the reason was actually fear. She stared blankly at Nian Bing, not knowing what to do for a moment. The golden light receded, and the 7 shadow puppets merged back into Nian Bing's body. The gigantic shadow behind her suddenly fused with the scythe. The Grim Reaper had activated. The ice goddess dragon let out a mournful cry. It was originally slightly stronger than Nian Bing's forbidden curse, Grim Reaper's scythe, but because the ice goddess priestess aura was already weak and didn't have enough energy to support it, it weakened instead. When the ice goddess dragon clashed with the Grim Reaper's scythe, it transformed into the primitive ice element, just like the ice spear from before. When the ice goddess dragon disappeared, the black shadow also disappeared under the golden light from the ice goddess priestess hand. Sensing the chilling air, Nian Bing turned around and walked outside. Do the most important thing first. After everything is over, I'll definitely go to the Ice God Tower to find you. Let's fight to decide my parents' fates. He left with his back facing the Ice Goddess Priestess, completely leaving himself open to the other party. However, the more he did this, the more the Ice Goddess Priestess didn't dare to attack. As she watched Nian Bing gradually disappear into the distance, her gaze became a bit unfocused. This didn't increase her hatred. Instead, it increased Tong Tong's confusion. Confusion because of Nian Bing's sudden increase in strength. Confusion because of his heavenly eye that merged two acupoints. And confusion because he didn't attack her. When they returned to the carriage, Feng Nu had already started a fire, but no one ate first. They were all waiting for Nian Bing's return. Upon seeing him return safely, Long Ling was the first to leap into his arms. She caressed Nian Bing's body from head to toe, afraid he was missing something. Nian Bing grabbed Long Ling's hand. He chuckled mischievously and said, "You're in such a hurry to get intimate with me? Then how about tonight?" Long Ling exclaimed and escaped from Nian Bing's demonic grasp. She hid behind Feng Nu in your dreams. Even if you want to get intimate, it should be sister's turn, right? You two met first. Feng Nu blushed slightly, and Nian Bing shot her an inquiring look. Nian Bing nodded at her and said, "Don't worry, I'm fine. I think our journey will be much more peaceful. All right, let's return to the carriage." Without the magic saber's help, Lan Xun and Halogen had already returned to the carriage by the time Nian Bing put away the saber. When Nian Bing entered the carriage, his body involuntarily swayed. He only managed to stabilize himself with Feng Nu's support. The three women's concerned gazes landed on Nian Bing at the same time. Nian Bing shook his head and said, "I'm fine. Maybe I used too much magic just now. I'll be fine after a bit of recovery." Although he said so, he was cursing in his heart. This damn fusion of two acupoints is really hateful. It can only scare people and has no use at all. It also affects my strength. Although Cao and Tianxiang didn't judge the true effect of his fusion of two acupoints, Nian Bing felt it himself. These two strongest acupoints only had one effect, and that was to interfere with each other. Not only did he lose the ability to use his psychic power to attack, but when he used his psychic power to stimulate two acupoints at the same time, the consumption of psychic power in the multicolored light or between his eyebrows would greatly increase. It was like using psychic power to attack several times in a row. But when it was used, it would produce a huge oppressive force. He took advantage of this to scare the Ice Goddess Priestess. A silent night passed. The next day, they continued on their journey. Perhaps they were really scared by Nian Bing. The Ice Goddess Priestess didn't look for trouble again and didn't say a word to Nian Bing. Just like when Lan Shan was being Yun and participated in the competition in the Huarong Empire, he didn't even get out of the carriage. Every day, he just sat in the carriage and let the coachman outside drive him. Nian Bing often thought of an evil leader. Could it be that the Ice Goddess Priestess didn't need to go to the toilet? When he found an opportunity to quietly ask Lan Shan somewhat angrily pinched him several times. Then he told him that when the people of the Ice God Tower practiced magic, their bodily functions would decrease to a certain extent, making their metabolism very slow. This way, they could go without eating for 10 to 15 days. Naturally, they wouldn't need to excrete. 14 days later, two luxurious carriages marked with the Ice Moon Empire's emblem arrived at the capital of the Huarong Empire, Dutian City. As soon as they arrived, they immediately met the Huarong Empire's personnel in charge of reception. Nian Bing knew the highest official in charge of reception and was very familiar with him. It was his big brother, Rong Bing. When Rong Bing saw Nian Bing come down from the carriage, his eyes suddenly became dull. The next moment, the two brothers were tightly hugging each other. Nian Bing felt it most vividly, from life to death, and then from death to life. He once thought that he would never see Rong Bing again. Now that he finally saw him again, how could he not be excited? "Nian Bing, why are you in the Ice Moon Empire's diplomatic mission? Do you only have these people?" Rong Bing looked suspiciously at Nian Bing. It was Lan Shun and Long Ling's first time seeing Rong Bing. Seeing someone who looked exactly like the man they loved, their hearts were indescribably strange. Nian Bing gave Rong Bing a meaningful look and said, "Brother, let me introduce you to someone first." Saying that, she pulled Rong Bing to the second carriage. At this time, the ice goddess priestess had just come down from the carriage. When she saw Nian Bing, she was also stunned and immediately frowned. Nian Bing had already thought of this possible situation and said calmly, "This is the ice goddess priestess, and this is Prince Rong's family's eldest grandson, Viscount Rong Bing." Because Rong Bing was the eldest grandson and also the son-in-law of Emperor Huatian's most beloved granddaughter, he had already been conferred a title of nobility. The ice goddess priestess coldly snorted and said, "I'm afraid he's also your brother." Rong Bing looked at Nian Bing in astonishment. Of course, he knew about the relationship between the ice goddess priestess and the Rong family. At this time, the ice goddess priestess was actually representing the Ice Moon Empire to participate in the four countries' publicly acknowledged conference. This was something he didn't expect. However, the powerful aura emitted by the ice goddess priestess made his heart secretly tremble. As a fire magician, he had the most profound understanding of ice magic. After not seeing each other for 2 years, Rong Bing had also matured a lot. He said without batting an eyelid, "To have the continent's only God-sent magician come to our country is truly an honor. Lord Ice Goddess Priestess, please." After saying that, he made a gesture of invitation and led the Ice Goddess Priestess into the state guest house. Feng Nu chuckled and told Lan Shun and Long Ling about the misunderstanding she had with Rong Bing for the first time. Immediately, the two girls burst into laughter. Fortunately, Lan Shun had already changed his appearance and temperament under the effect of a morning dew dagger, so he didn't arouse the ice goddess priestess' suspicion. After settling everyone down, Rong Bing immediately went to Nian Bing's room. The rooms in the state guest house were very standard, 2 people to a room. The 3 girls were shy and didn't want to live with Nian Bing. Nian Bing was also worried that she might neglect Halogen, so she lived with Halogen. The 3 girls, on the other hand, had an extra bed in another room and lived together. "Brother, what's going on with you?" Rong Bing couldn't wait to ask as soon as he entered the room. As he spoke, he glanced at Linlin, who was next to him, under the effect of the longevity saber. Halogen was extremely tall. On the way here, Halogen didn't speak much. At this moment, he was leaning against the window, looking at the bustling scene of the capital city. Nian Bing pulled Rong Bing to sit down. "Brother, it's okay. Big brother Halogen is one of us. Don't worry. I know you must be wondering why I became an emissary of the Ice Moon Empire. Actually, didn't I represent the Ice Moon Empire to participate in the competition?" Rong Bing frowned and said, "But it's different this time. The one presiding over the conference is our grandfather. The situation of the 4 Empires Conference is very delicate. Don't tell me you want to go against grandfather? Moreover, what's with that ice goddess priestess? She also came here. Don't tell me she wants to intimidate the Huarong Empire?" Nian Bing smiled. A faint 7-colored light floated out and enveloped the two of them. Pure spiritual power blocked out all sound. Only then did he say, "You don't have to worry about the ice goddess priestess. Although she's a powerful magician, she's not a very good politician. The one who really made the decision this time is actually me. As for Big Brother's doubts, I can't answer them for you now. However, since grandfather took me back into the Rong family, everything I do naturally won't harm the Rong family's interests. I'll go talk to grandfather, but not now." Nian Bing's spiritual power gave Rong Bing a fright. "Brother, what kind of magic is this?" Nian Bing smiled and said, "Brother, this is a special magic that I've cultivated myself. It's based on spiritual power and 7 elemental magic. All right, let's not talk about this for now. Oh, right, are you married?" Rong Bing blushed slightly and said, "Not yet. It'll be a few years before I get married. I won't ask too much about your affairs. In any case, since you're the emissary of the Ice Moon Empire, grandfather will take care of it. You left for nearly 2 years and didn't even come back to see me. Could it be that you've forgotten me, your brother?" Nian Bing thought of the situation where he struggled between life and death in the past 2 years. His mind rippled. He smiled bitterly and said, I also wanted to come back to see you, but the truth is beyond my control. Brother, this time I came back with a lot of things to deal with. First, tell me what happened in the Huarong Empire in the past 2 years. Grandfather's actions are really fast. In just 2 years, he weakened Longmu and destroyed Kiru. His actions were like lightning, and he's already laid the foundation of the South. Rong Bing smiled and said, Yes, Grandfather has been preparing for this day for a long time. You know, when Kiru was destroyed, I also participated in the battle and made some contributions under Grandfather's deliberate command. Nian Bing smiled and said, Grandpa, you're laying the foundation for your successor. Brother, you have to work hard. In our generation, there's really no one in the Rong family who can compete with you. Rong Bing suddenly said seriously, Nian Bing, if you come back, I'd rather give this position to you. Not only is your magic power above mine, but your other abilities are also much stronger than mine. From the moment you represented the Ice Moon Empire as an emissary, I already understood your strength. Nian Bing, do you really want to be used by the Ice Moon Empire? Nian Bing grabbed Rong Bing's shoulder and said, No, brother, the position of the Rong family's patriarch will definitely be yours in the future. Don't worry, I don't belong to any country, but my surname will always be Rong. As long as you need help, I'll always be your shadow in the dark. We're blood brothers. I'm used to freedom and can't stand the atmosphere of the family. I don't have to stay in the family to contribute to the Rong family. Just do your best to be the successor. All right, tell me about the situation here. It's not suitable for you to stay here for too long. Rong Bing gave Nian Bing a deep look and said, When you left, we launched an attack on the Longmu Empire. Because of many years of peace, the Longmu Empire's defenses were much looser than before. In addition, we opened up a special passage and forced our way into the Longmu Plains. Relying on our 2 main cavalry regiments and a large number of elite cavalrymen, we defeated them quickly and annihilated many of their main forces. Father was in charge of logistics and led the army to carry out the cleanup operation. At this point, he couldn't help but laugh. Father is really ruthless. Everywhere we went, we didn't leave a single grain of food for the Longmu Empire, but we didn't kill a single person. This way, it wouldn't arouse the anger of the people and cause the Lang Mu Empire civilians to retaliate. Moreover, it would cause an enormous burden to the Lang Mu Empire. Just solving the problem of the starving people made the Lang Mu Empire busy for a long time. Even if they had sufficient food reserves, they were busy for half a year before gradually calming down. It was also because of the losses in this battle and the large consumption of food reserves that they didn't find the best opportunity to launch an attack on us at the crucial moment. Grandfather once said that among the other 4 empires, Huarong is only afraid of the Ice Moon Empire and the Longmu Empire joining hands. As for the others, they could be easily dealt with. You probably know what happened after that. We suddenly launched an attack and broke into the interior of the Qilu Empire like a hot knife through butter. We directly attacked their capital and forced the Qilu Empire to surrender, drawing the entire empire into our territory. Although we paid a heavy price, compared to the final result, it was worth it. This 4 empires publicly acknowledged conference was proposed by Grandpa Su. The goal is to ease the conflict between us and the other 3 empires. The soldiers have fought 2 battles in a row, and it's time for them to rest. However, we aren't afraid now. Even if Alland, Longmu, and the Ice Moon Empire join hands, it won't be easy for them to deal with the Huarong Empire. After all, our soldiers are all elites who have been through many battles. Because Grandpa Su used delaying tactics to attack the Qilu Empire, they have already been adjusted to a certain extent. Even if we suddenly respond, we can still hold out for a period of time. Chapter 189. Nian Bing smiled and shook his head. Big brother, I'm afraid what you're seeing is just the surface. Actually, the Huarong Empire's greatest crisis isn't the 4 Nations Conference, but the Kiru Empire. That's why this conference is being held. Along the way, Nian Bing had already sorted out his thoughts and gradually understood the meaning of the Four Nations Conference. Rome being asked in surprise, "What do you mean?" Nian Bing replied calmly, "Although the Kiru Empire was annexed, and the Hwarong Empire paid a small price, the Hwarong Empire didn't have to worry about the Kiru Empire. However, don't forget that because the Kiru Empire used to be allied with the Hwarong Empire, the Kiru Empire's influence isn't small. Furthermore, the Kiru Empire's land area is second only to the Hwarong Empire and Longmu Empire. Although your attacks had a good effect, the Kiru Empire's forces were not weak. However, the Kiru Empire's main forces might not have been wiped out. Right now, the most important thing for the Hwarong Empire is to completely pacify the Kiru Empire. Annexing a country isn't something that can be done in a year or two. Right now, there doesn't seem to be any danger in the Kiru Empire. However, there will definitely be some people who aren't convinced. Perhaps there won't be any major riots, but small-scale wars will continue for a long time. Just the possibility of guerrilla warfare will give the Hwarong Empire a headache for a long time. In order to stabilize the situation in the Kiru Empire, there needs to be at least a legion of soldiers scattered throughout the Kiru Empire. Furthermore, they need to be elite troops. Am I right? Rong Bing looked at Nian Bing and suddenly laughed. "Good kid, you're really smart. Are you blaming me for not telling you the truth?" Nian Bing shook his head. "No, of course not. We're brothers. Why would I blame you? After all, I'm representing the Ice Moon Empire. We're in different camps, so it's normal for you to hold back." Rong Bing sighed. "It's good that you understand my difficulties. Yes, you guessed right. Right now, the one guarding the Kairu Empire is my father. He is leading all the elites of the Eastern Army to be stationed there. He is gradually reorganizing the various armies of the Kairu Empire, breaking them up and reorganizing them into our own forces, expanding the Eastern Army from 1 army corps to 3. However, it won't be easy to make the Kairu Empire's soldiers fully submit to me. Now, all we have to do is wait for this group of troops to complete their reorganization and return to our country. I'm afraid this process will take some time." Nian Bing said. "If that's the case, then it's obvious. Currently, there were only 2 corps in charge of guarding the city. Even though the Hwarong Empire was no longer surrounded by enemies from 3 sides, it was still under attack. However, the southern battlefront was as wide as the border between the 2 empires. How could 2 armies defend it? If the other 3 empires were to join forces and attack, the situation would not be optimistic. Even with his grandfather's prestige, he would still be able to fend them off. The Longmu Empire also saw this point, which was why they desperately tried to rope in the Ottoman Empire and the Ice Moon Empire. Prime Minister Grandpa Su also saw this point, so he used all kinds of situations to stall for time. Every day passed. Every day, the Hwarong Empire would grow stronger. Right now, both sides are just fighting for time. Rong Bing said, "I'm not very clear about the specifics. Right now, I'm a soldier and only responsible for fighting. I'm not good at scheming and scheming. However, if Grandpa heard such an accurate analysis of the price, he would definitely be very happy to have a good grandson like you." Nian Bing smiled and shook his head. "Actually, what I see is only the surface. Compared to those politicians, I'm still too inexperienced. After all, I've only been in contact with these things for a short period of time." "Brother, you're right. You're a soldier. It's fine as long as you understand these things, but don't get involved. Otherwise, it'll disrupt your life and make it difficult for you to have any more happy moments." Rong Bing smiled bitterly. "As the successor, even if I don't want to participate, I'm afraid it won't be up to me in the future. You're the last to arrive. The emissaries from the Ottoman Empire and the Longmu Empire have already arrived. Compared to them, you're much more shabby. The Ottoman Empire is slightly better with only a few dozen people, but the Longmu Empire has a few hundred people. Only the Ice Moon Empire has sent a mere 8 people. Could it be that the 7th prince of the Ice Moon Empire, who inherited the throne, doesn't care about this meeting? I really didn't expect this. I've seen it before. Someone as lazy as him can actually sit on the throne." Nian Bing said, "Although we've only sent a few people, we're all very experienced. Just that Ice Goddess Priestess alone is something the other countries can't compare to. Brother, don't underestimate anyone. Dong Beifeng isn't what you think he is. He's very capable, but he's been hiding because he didn't have the opportunity. Now that he's ascended the throne, the Ice Moon Empire will definitely develop rapidly in the future. Oh, right? Who are the representatives of the various countries this time? He thought to himself. If he told his brother that he'd brought experts who were at least at the level of Magister, he wondered what his brother would think. There was even a warrior in the room who wasn't inferior to the Ice Goddess Priestess. Rong Bing said, "Our country's representatives are naturally Grandpa Su and our grandfather." Nian Bing smiled. "I guess it was them. Grandpa Su's wisdom and our grandfather's deterrence is indeed the best combination. What about the other two countries?" Rong Bing said, "You've seen the Longmu Empire's representative before. It's Miss Mu Jing who participated in the competition last time. This time, her brother didn't come. For her to be able to represent the Longmu Empire at her age, you can see her status in the Longmu Empire." "Oh, right. After you left last time, we discovered a large number of spies from the Longmu Empire. That time, the Longmu Empire lost a lot of people. Only the two siblings, Mu Rong and Mu Jing, were able to escape. However, they didn't seem to have learned their lesson last time. This time, they've brought more people than last time. I really don't know what they're thinking. Don't tell me that they think these few hundred people can do anything." Nian Bing said, "Every side has their own ideas. That Mu Jing isn't easy to deal with. Last time, it was only because Du Tian City was the territory of the Huarong Empire, and because my grandfather was there, that the threat they posed was easily resolved. This woman can't be underestimated." His heart was as clear as a mirror. The reason why Mu Jing's men were completely wiped out last time was most likely related to the bloodline cult that he was in charge of. Otherwise, it wouldn't be easy to find so many infiltrated enemies with just the people on the surface. Rong Bing said, "The most unlucky ones are the Ottoman Empire. This time, they've sent a young woman as an emissary. It's not the Duke of Blue Feather, who's usually in charge of big events. Instead, it's a middle-aged woman who's going to be the emissary's assistant. Their subordinates aren't strange. They're all elites of the Silver Feather Knights. However, Grandpa Su seems to value this emissary from the Ottoman Empire a lot. Only, I don't know what happened during the negotiations with the Ottoman Empire. Otherwise, I'd be able to make some judgments." Nian Bing smiled. "I know who the Ottoman Empire sent. Brother, just wait and see. This girl is the one who is truly amazing. Speaking of which, it was the Ice Moon Empire who pushed her to the Ottoman Empire. I haven't seen her for a few years. I wonder what she's become." Rong Bing said in surprise, "Nian Bing, why do you get so excited when women are mentioned? Quick, tell me the truth. Why are there 3 women with you? Don't tell me." Halogen, who'd been watching from the side, suddenly turned around and laughed. "Nian Bing is really good at this. Those 3 are all his wives. As his brother, I'm afraid you can't compare to him." Nian Bing blushed and smiled bitterly. "Brother Halogen, don't make fun of me. But brother, they're really your sisters-in-law. You've met Feng Nu. As for the other 2, Rong Bing was stunned. He was just guessing. He didn't expect that the 3 beauties were all Nian Bing's wives. He looked at him strangely. "Good, you're really strong. However, don't tell me that the other 2 are also as strong as Phoenix Maiden? The situation in the capital city is a bit chaotic. Aren't you afraid that something will happen to them?" Nian Bing said confidently, "I'm not worried about that. It's good enough that they don't provoke others. Why would I be afraid of others provoking them? All right, brother, you can go back first. I've already understood the situation here. In order to avoid arousing suspicion, it's better if you don't see me often." Rong Bing said with a smile, "Suspicion my ass. Just based on our similar appearances, it's already a big suspicion. If they want to suspect us, then they can. With our Rong family status in the Huarong Empire, who dares to gossip about us?" Nian Bing sighed and said, "Brother, that's what I'm worried about. The Rong family is in the limelight now. If there's a chance, I really need to have a good talk with Grandfather. Go back and tell Grandfather that I'm here. If he's willing to see me, send someone to send a message. I'll think of a way to go over." Rong Bing also knew that it wasn't good for him to stay for too long. Nian Bing nodded and said goodbye to Halogen before leaving. Lying on the bed, Nian Bing's brain spun quickly. According to Rong Bing, the instigator of Holland should be wisdom girl Luo Ro, while the instigator of the Longmu Empire should be Mu Jing. This is going to be interesting. I hope that the one accompanying Luo Ro will be Yu Ruyan. If that's the case, some things will be much easier to deal with. Nian Bing, I'm hungry. Aren't you the instigator of that whatever country? It can't be that there's no food here, right? Halogen closed the window and rubbed his protesting stomach. Nian Bing smiled and said, Brother Halogen, your appetite is growing. When we were in the continent of gods, I didn't see you eat so much. Buluan gave a silly smile and said, Food is scarce there, so we naturally have to be frugal with whatever we eat. But it's different here. It wasn't easy to come to this continent where I can eat my fill. How can I treat my stomach badly? Nian Bing's mind flashed, and she immediately remembered the porridge that Rong Bing had brought her to eat. She hurriedly said, All right, then let's go out and have a good meal. Today, I'll bring you to eat something new. Let's go. Nian Bing changed into civilian clothes and put on the bamboo hat that she had prepared beforehand. She went out with Halogen, called the 3 girls next door, and left the state guest house. In the room on the other side of them, a mage under the priestess of the snow goddess saw the 5 of them leave from the window. He hurriedly said to the priestess, Priestess, they've gone out. Should I follow them and take a look? The priestess shook her head and said, No need. It's useless for you to follow this person. Ever since that day, when she had a simple fight with Nian Bing, she had been thinking about Nian Bing's combination of sky, eye, and emperor realm. She really couldn't believe that such a thing could happen, but the truth was right in front of her eyes. At that time, the pressure emitted by Nian Bing left an extremely deep impression on her. In her heart, for the first time, she doubted her position as the #1 divine descent master on the continent. He was also able to cast an instant forbidden spell and had the support of 7 divine tools. This kind of strength wasn't something that she could easily defeat. What young man? How old is he to actually be able to reach such a level? Closing her eyes, the priestess continued her meditation, but several figures appeared in her mind. Nian Bing walked with Halogen and the 3 girls on the wide street. Although he had experienced many difficulties in his childhood, every time he came back here, he felt like he had returned home. After all, this was the place where he was born. His parents had also spent the most beautiful time here. Long Ling came to the capital city for the first time. Like Halogen, she looked around excitedly. She never thought too much. After coming to the Ice Moon City with Nian Bing, she didn't even see her father. It wasn't that she didn't want to, but that she didn't dare. She was afraid that her father wouldn't let her follow Nian Bing. It wasn't easy for Nian Bing to come back alive. She just wanted to accompany him for a while. After settling Nian Bing's matter and calming down, she would find an opportunity to return to her father's side to fulfill her filial duties. Long Ling still had a grudge because of what Long Jinan did to Nian Bing and betrothed her to the 5th prince. Although she didn't say it, she now saw Nian Bing as the closest person to her. This time, she followed Nian Bing to the capital city. She completely treated it as a trip, looking at the capital city of the Huarong Empire, which was completely different from the Ice Moon Empire. She was indescribably happy. Nian Bing, this place is much warmer than the Ice Moon Empire. The temperature is at least twice as good. Nian Bing smiled and said, Of course. This is the southernmost part of the continent. The temperature is always high. Even in winter, the plants are evergreen. The capital city is one of the most suitable cities to live in. Here, as long as you have money, you can find almost anything you want. 3 beautiful ladies. You don't have to be polite with me. Yin Feng gave me a lot of money for this trip. If there's anything you like, feel free to buy it. Nian Bing had never had any concept of money. Although she was here for business, the meeting had not started yet. It was rare for her to bring her 3 beloved ladies out to play. Of course, she wanted them to be happy. Lan Xin smiled as she followed Nian Bing. She had been cultivating with the ice goddess since she was young. She had a pure heart and few desires. She was not very interested in anything in the outside world. Feng Nu and Long Ling, on the other hand, were wandering around the surrounding shops. They were very happy. They did not buy anything. After all, there were too few things that caught their eyes. After walking for a long time, they passed a street. Halogen could not help but complain in a low voice. Nian Bing, with the speed of your two wives, I'm afraid I won't be able to find a place to eat even if I starve to death. Can't we eat something first? For him, the most attractive thing in the Yangon continent had always been delicious food. Nian Bing smiled and said, Okay, let's go eat first. Feng Nu, I'll take Chun Chun and Big Brother Halogen to eat at the kanji shop where we met last time. You and Ling, can come find us after you walk around for a while. Feng Nu and Long Ling were choosing clothes in a clothing shop. Although they were wearing bamboo hats, they unintentionally emitted a noble aura. The female owner of the shop was constantly flattering them and giving them the best things to choose from. When Feng Nu heard Nian Bing mention the kanji shop, she could not help but blush. Fortunately, her bamboo hat was covered by a white veil, so it could not be seen from the outside. Okay, you two go first. We'll go find you after we play for a while. If there's anything, just blow the flute and call me. Nian Bing reminded her. This is Ling Er's first time in the capital city. You have to look after her. Don't let her get lost. Feng Nu laughed and said, Do you think we're still children? How do we get lost? Go quickly. Only then did Nian Bing, Halogen, and Lan Shun quicken their pace and walk toward the kanji shop. Because the hotel was not far from the kanji shop, they arrived in front of the kanji shop after a while. Just like the last time, there was already a queue. Although it was not meal time, Nian Bing and the others were still in the queue. Halogen sniffed and smelled the fragrance coming from the shop. He asked, Nian Bing said in a low voice, Brother, how long do we have to wait before we can eat? Nian Bing shrugged and said, I didn't expect this place to be so popular. Even though it's not a restaurant, there are still so many people coming to eat. Lan Shin smiled and said, Is the food here really that delicious? Why don't we go somewhere else? It's nearby. Sister and the others can find it if they come. Nian Bing smiled and said, No, let's eat here. You should know that the kanji here is very special. Think about what your husband does. If even I think it's delicious, how can it be bad? Feng Nu and Ling are really good at foresight. Chin, why don't you go play with them for a while? I'll line up here with Brother Halogen. Lan Shin shook his head and smiled. He didn't insist anymore. His cold little hand gripped Nian Bing's large hand tightly, and his shoulder pressed against Nian Bing's arm. She had always liked silence. It was rare for her to be alone with Nian Bing. Although she was standing and waiting, she still felt very comfortable. She thought to herself, how good would it be if we could stay like this forever? Nian Bing naturally did not know what Lan Shin was thinking. She looked at the kanji shop. Like Halogen, she hoped to go in earlier. Suddenly, when he raised his head unintentionally, he saw a graceful figure flash past the window of the shop. His heart skipped a beat, and a faint smile appeared on his face. It seems that we can eat this porridge in advance. As he said that, Nian Bing held Lan Shin's hand and walked out of the line. Bing Yun said in surprise, Why aren't we lining up again? Nian Bing smiled mysteriously and said, We don't have to line up when we meet someone we know. You know this person too. Chin Shun, restore your original appearance, hee hee. Seeing Nian Bing's mischievous smile, Lan Shin's heart was filled with warmth. The morning dew dagger was still in her body. Under the control of Nian Bing's spiritual power, she restored her original appearance. The three of them walked directly to the kanji shop. Just as they were about to enter, they were stopped by the shop assistant. I'm sorry, the three of you. The shop is now full. Please line up at the back. Thank you. Nian Bing smiled and said, No need to line up. My friend is already eating on the second floor. Please take us upstairs. The shop assistant was stunned. Oh, so that's how it is. Then please follow me. Under his lead, Nian Bing and the other two climbed to the second floor. The second floor was full of private rooms. When the shop assistant asked Nian Bing for the room number of the private room, Nian Bing was a little embarrassed. He only knew the approximate location. How could he know the room number? However, this was not a problem for him. He instantly spread out his spiritual power and found the exact location in the blink of an eye. He pointed to the private room, and the shop assistant hurriedly led them there. The shop assistant motioned for Nian Bing and the other two to wait. He knocked on the door of the private room a few times. A calm voice came from the room. Didn't I say not to disturb? The shop assistant respectfully said, I'm sorry, your guests are here. Our guests? The voice in the room was a little surprised. Frozen Cloud glanced at the confident Nian Bing and couldn't help but pinch his hand. She said in a low voice, You're so annoying. Always being so secretive. Just who is in this room? Before Nian Bing could answer, the door was opened and a charming figure came out. Bing Yun's eyes flashed, and she immediately recognized the person. It was the representative of the Mu Empire, Mu Jing, who participated in the 5 countries' new magician competition. As soon as Mu Jing opened the door, she saw the tall Nian Bing at a glance. She was stunned. Why are you here? Nian Bing smiled and said, It's better to meet by chance. We were waiting in line downstairs when we suddenly saw Mrs. Figure from the window. We specially came to disturb you. Would you like to eat together? Mu Jing's eyes flashed, but her face showed a trace of embarrassment. Brother Nian Bing, I'm really sorry. I'm entertaining a friend, so it's not very convenient. How about you tell me where you are? When I'm done here, Mu Jing will immediately visit you. Nian Bing smiled and said, I see. I haven't seen you for a long time, and Miss Mu Jing has become more beautiful. I just came from the Ice Moon Empire and am staying in the state guest house. If Miss is free, you can come over and sit with us. After that, she pulled Bing Yun and turned to leave. After hearing Nian Bing's words, Mu Jing's face suddenly changed. She hurriedly said, Brother Nian Bing, please wait a moment. Nian Bing turned around and smiled. What? Is there anything else? Mu Jing said, You said that you're staying in the state guest house. Could it be that you're the emissary from the Ice Moon Empire? Nian Bing had already guessed that she would have this kind of reaction. She nodded and said, Thank you, His Majesty, for not abandoning me. I'm here as the chief magician, representing the Ice Moon Empire. Mu Jing looked at Nian Bing's deep gaze and felt a chill in her heart. She said, If that's the case, then you're not an outsider. The friend that I invited is from the Ottoman Empire. Brother Nian, please come in. We can talk. After that, she hurriedly moved to the side of the door. Nian Bing tightened her grip on Bing Yun's hand. Brother Halogen, I say we don't need to line up. Miss Mu Jing has always been hospitable. As she spoke, they had already entered the room. The private room was very spacious. There was a large dining table in the middle that could seat 20 people. Other than Mu Jing, there were 3 other people in the room. Each of them had a small pot of porridge in front of them. Nian Bing? 2 of the 3 people in the room stood up. They were Yu Ruyan and wisdom girl Luo Ro, who hadn't been seen for a long time. Yu Ruyan seemed to have lost some weight, but her gaze was sharper. Luo Ro had changed a lot since the last time Nian Bing saw her. She was wearing a black dress that looked very plain. Although the dress was simple, there was a blue gem about 3 inches in diameter on the chest area. It shone brightly with her deep blue eyes. Her wavy hair was a foot longer than before. In order to not let it loose, it was originally hanging on her thighs. Now that she stood up, it could clearly be seen that her hair had reached her knees. The biggest change was her temperament. In Nian Bing's impression of Luo Ro, although she was full of wisdom, she seemed to be somewhat arrogant. But now, her deep eyes seemed to be a bit more calm, and her aura was much more mature than before. Mom, Miss Luo Ro. Yu Ruyan seemed to have forgotten that Mu Jing was beside her. In a flash, she had already arrived in front of Nian Bing. She grabbed his shoulders with both hands, and her gaze constantly flickered on his body. Feeling the surging vitality coming from Nian Bing's body, Yu Ruyan's eyes couldn't help but become moist. Good. Child, it's great that you're okay. Mu Jing stood at the side in a daze. She never thought that Nian Bing and Yu Ruyan would have such a relationship. When Nian Bing called her mom, her heart was in chaos. Mom! Bing Yun suddenly lifted the bamboo hat on her head and threw herself into her mother's arms. Her tears flowed uncontrollably. After a full 1.5 years, she finally saw her mother again. How could she not be excited? Yu Ruyan's heart was filled with joy. She held her daughter with one hand and Nian Bing's hand with the other. She was so excited that she couldn't say anything. Luo Ro looked deeply at Nian Bing and then at Lan Shun. Her excitement from before quickly calmed down. She walked in front of Nian Bing and smiled. Nian Bing, long time no see. Nian Bing smiled and said, It really has been a long time. I've already heard of Miss Fame when I was in the Ice Moon Empire. Luo Ro looked deeply at Nian Bing and said, Isn't this all thanks to you? Luo Ro hasn't had the chance to thank you yet. Nian Bing's eyes showed a trace of surprise. He didn't understand why Luo Ro would use her real name and not that alias. He said, All right, let's sit first. Don't let Miss Mu Jing see us make a fool of ourselves. As he said that, he gently pinched Yu Ruyan's hand. Yu Ruyan finally reacted. She pulled Lan Chun to the side and condensed her duki into a voice and said something to her. At this time, Mu Jing's heart was in chaos. Lan Chun, no, in her heart, it was still Bing Yun. This powerful magician of the Ice God Tower was actually Yu Ruyan's daughter? Just so was Nian Bing's identity. He came as a representative of the Ice Moon Empire, but his relationship with Yu Ruyan was so close. He was also very familiar with Luo Ro, who was her archenemy. Looking at how he came in with Bing Yun, it was obvious that they were very close. A year and a half ago, they were still enemies. Chaos. Everything was in chaos. A layer of blue light rose up around Bing Yun's body. Her voice was restrained under the effect of the ice element. She was talking with Yu Ruyan as if she had already forgotten that there were other people present. Nian Bing's eyes moved around and fell on the only stranger in the room. Seeing this person, he couldn't help but be secretly shocked. It was a handsome man who looked to be about 30 years old. He was wearing an exquisite blue warrior suit. His aura was completely restrained. On the surface, he looked like an ordinary person. If it wasn't for Nian Bing's strong spiritual power, he wouldn't have been able to discover his true aura. This person hid his strength very well. His duki was completely condensed in his body. However, Nian Bing observed him through his Tian Yin acupoint. He found that this person was not simple. His energy strength was actually not below Halogen's. This discovery made him a little confused. When did such a martial arts master surpass the 12th level appear in the Yangon continent? No wonder Mu Jing invited Luo Ro and Yu Ruyan to eat here and only brought him here. Luo Ro let Nian Bing sit beside her. Halogen sat on the other side of Nian Bing. Luo Ro didn't look at Yu Ruyan and her daughter. She smiled and said, Nian Bing, so you and Miss Mu Jing also know each other. Jing and I have been good friends since we were young. She even lived in our house for a long time. It was because she saw the doubts in Nian Bing's heart that she introduced her like this. Nian Bing felt a little strange. Since Mu Jing was the princess of the Longmu Empire, why would she live in Ice City? However, he didn't ask. He smiled and said, What a coincidence. We are representing the 3 empires to participate in the 4 Nations Conference. We actually met in this kanji shop. Oh, Miss Mu Jing, should we ask the waiter to bring some more food? We haven't eaten yet. Only then did Mu Jing wake up. She really did have an outstanding bearing. Her expression immediately returned to normal. She smiled and nodded. She called the waiter over and ordered more food. As soon as Halogen entered, his gaze fell on the handsome man. The man was also looking at him. The two of them didn't give way to each other and constantly collided in the air. Nian Bing said, I don't know what the 2 ladies are discussing. I wonder if I can also participate? Mu Jing smiled sweetly and said, Of course you can. Actually, we were guessing who your Ice Moon Empire would send to participate in this 4 Nations Conference. I didn't expect you to come yourself. Nian Bing didn't seem to hear the sarcasm in her words. He smiled and said, That's why I said it was a coincidence. Actually, I'm only an emissary. This time, the highest official sent by my empire isn't me. I'm only responsible for the negotiations. The diplomatic group will be led by her.